Okay, let's start episode 203, I believe, of the Current Gen podcast, our final installment of the 2023 Game of the Year Wars, where we are ranking our favorite things in games last year. This one's a little simpler, although it can take a while. What's interesting is when you get to the overall Game of the Year, we've talked about so many aspects of so many games. Sometimes it streamlines this part of it a little bit. That being said, it's been a week since we last all sat down and reviewed all these.
Right.
And we are now in week 3 of the new year, and we've already had a couple of, like, at least one excellent game and some really interesting kind of newsworthy games like Power World and Prince of Persia, of course, is out. So there's already things that are moving our brains towards like new stuff. And
I feel
so
like it's like timed perfectly though. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like
this
the
is-
overlap was a week.
Yeah.
So,
I think if we were to try to do this next week or especially the week after, I'd be like, I don't remember if I liked that one or not. So
yeah.
anyway, the goal of this is for us to throw a whole bunch of games that we think are deserving of being considered. We'll narrow that down to 10. Although last week we cheated and made it 15 because we're in charge. And
Yeah,
then
it's our show.
we'll rank
Right.
those. That's the only list. And outside of that, it's other favorite things, other personal lists that you have. I've got a few. I know you guys have a few things that you highlight.
Oh, do I?
Oh, I have a few.
boy.
Got
No,
it.
mine aren't that serious. They're not. They're never that serious.
So
fine.
Dan's is
Mine
very
imaginative
serious. He has
by
one
any
that's very,
means.
very serious.
I hope
Very
Dan
serious.
brought some imagination because I didn't at all.
Yeah, I didn't have the time to make that thing at all. So.
Dang it.
I didn't have the time at all.
Dan.
Down our
I'm
audience.
sorry.
And
Dan's
mainly
like ambitions were back in
And mainly me.
2023. We're leaving them back there.
He said mainly. You're laying down our audience, but mainly me.
New Year, still don't have time for anything.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah. Hard
Oh
to
my gosh. All right. So next week we'll get back to here's new games that are coming out. Here's some new headlines and all that. But for now, I'm going to start sharing my screen and we'll get right into it. And yes, this has somewhat for these few episodes per year becomes spreadsheet cast, current spreadsheet, current Google Sheets, whatever you want to call it. It becomes those things. And you know what? That's okay. Here we go. Let me know when you guys can see this.
Yes.
The sheets can be seen.
Best overall game of the year. So what we'll do is we'll just start naming off games we want to be in consideration. Why don't we do this? Why don't we each, you just name 3.
oh, that's
This
good.
time, since we normally do like alphabetical, we'll kind of start in the middle. So let's do Jeff, you go first. Then we'll go Kyle, then Tim, then Dan. We'll kind of just go out of order a little bit just because we always do a certain order. So anyway,
Yeah.
So Jeff, you go first. Just name 3 games that you know we're going to be considering. We'll just kind of jumpstart this a little bit.
Oh yeah, 3 that I know will be in here.
Even if they're your top 3, doesn't matter. If they're just on your list and you know you're going to want to consider them, that's probably a good way to do it. Is look at your own personal list and just name 3, and then we can look through my shared screen here if you want. So all right.
So I gotta beat Dan to it and put Final Fantasy 16 in there.
All
You
right.
son of a B.
A true fan of the
Yeah.
podcast. Jeff,
I took away his
Fantasy,
gimmick.
Biggest fan.
Now he
That
has
means
no.
that game
Oh,
belongs
also-
to you now.
Also, I'm gonna take another one of Dan's, Spider-Man 2. So he's gonna have
Wow.
nothing.
The
to say.
biggest Spider-Man fan.
Yeah.
Jeff.
I hope
Jeff,
I hope
here
you
he
get
is.
literally all of the AIDS. All of them.
Jeff owns those games now. Dan can't have them.
Yeah,
because
Jeff
named them
is
first.
the owner of those games for the episode.
That's how that works.
So.
That's how. it works.
and Octopath Traveler 2. Suck it, Dan.
You son of a
Wow.
you're
Yeah.
a son of a bitch.
So basically, Dan, there's no other games this year. So.
Those are the
I
only
mean,
3
those
new
are the
games Dan
3
played, I think.
There's no
Damn,
need
Dan.
for me to be here, so see you later.
All right, Kyle, name 3 games for us to move over.
Zelda, Baldur's Gate, and I'm gonna do it. Starfield.
I'll do
Whoa.
it down here. Nice.
Yeah, that's right. Jeff, that's right.
This Xbox cast is getting out of control.
I'm gonna
You
move
got all the
over.
PlayStation games. I got the only Xbox game.
Oh, there's another one.
Well, whatever, dude.
All right. I moved over Jedi Survivor, and
Yeah.
let's see. I will also move over little rhyming. Dave the Diver. Huh?
Save the diver.
Jedi Survivor, Dave the Diver.
Yeah. See,
One of these is
We're on
not
the same
like the
page.
other.
I'm gonna bring over Fire Emblem Engage to at least consider it. Although it's not on my personal 10, it just feels like a good one to have in that consideration column because it is
We're
excellent.
already in the good to have in the consideration column.
That's
period.
just my eyes saw it, and that's just what I'm doing. Don't judge
It's
me.
his
My,
All right,
art,
Forspoken.
yeah.
While we're there, Forspoken. No, I'm kidding.
my personal list is actually currently covered up by the game that's kind of below the screen, just checking to see if the 49ers happen to win or not. So I
Oh.
can't. I couldn't think off the top of my head, and I just saw that one. So
I have the live feed up too for that
yeah.
game.
All right, go ahead,
Very
Dan.
curious.
You name 3 if you've got 3. Jeff already named.
I'm all set. I quit. So.
He's taking care of it.
You know what? Armored Core. We'll put Armored Core on there. Even though that game kind of broke my heart this year because goddamn was it difficult.
Yeah.
That's saying something with our pro gamer saying that, you know.
Did we do Star Wars yet?
I did.
Okay, you did.
Yeah. What about Diablo 4?
I mean, I wouldn't pick it, and that's not like me being like,
right.
F you,
You can
Diablo,
let someone else throw it over. It's fine.
Do
you have anything else?
Do
you have a list of favorite games?
Trash.
I don't, because I mean, to be honest, the 3 that Jeff listed are probably my top 3. So,
like, Jeff was just being mean. That's all that was.
You know what? Put Mortal Kombat 1 over there, just for fun. Put Mortal Kombat 1 over there.
Oh, because it's an excellent game that a lot of people like. Okay.
Yeah, I like what they did there.
All
right. Alan Wake 2.
There you go.
Obviously.
Have you started that yet, by the way?
Yeah, I'm probably about like 7-ish hours in.
Oh, all right.
Wow.
I'm a little behind that, like maybe an hour and a half behind that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good video game, folks. It's truly good.
It's pretty.
I'm really glad I played more of it because boy, am I gonna cheer for that game super hard today.
Yeah.
Same. I'm glad I finished it because
Whereas like last time, I'm like, I heard I should probably be like, you know, like I don't know, I'd be doing a lot of hearsay agreeing.
I was a little more lukewarm on it, and then by the time I finished it, I was like, this is one of my favorites this year. Anyway, okay, Jeff, back to you. Name 3 more.
Sea of Stars.
Thanks for making me scroll all the way down. I know that's why you're giggling.
Giggling because Dan didn't say it and I did.
That's fine.
So let's go back up to the H's because I have a couple from there.
Son of a gun.
I know, it's a lot of work. Hi-Fi Rush and Hogwarts Legacy, right there, right next to each other. There you go. Let's consolidate.
Excellent. Kyle?
Remnant 2.
Yeah, man.
Like a Dragon Gaiden.
Okay.
Diablo 4.
There's the Diablo. Yes, Diablo 4. All right, I'm going to bump Dredge over here. All right, let's see here. What else am I missing from my list? Oh, Forspoken. Just kidding.
Oh, for a second there, I was like, wait
How dare you?
I'm going to put Liza P over to the consideration.
P-Lies, yeah.
Column. P-Lies was excellent. And I know there's several that I'm missing, and so I am just glancing through. Oh, you know what? I'm going to move Convergence over to. I love that game. Okay, now we'll just open it up. Anybody throw any out as we look down through this list, starting at the top.
I was going to say Mario Wonder. I think we missed.
Yeah, Mario Wonder is a good one.
That's
a big one. Yeah.
It's absolutely in my top 10.
Almost like you guys hated it. I don't understand.
Street Fighter 6?
I didn't even play it, so.
No? All right.
No. Very, very good. Just, I don't know if we're the audience.
Jeff, are you going to fight for Talos Principle 2?
Move it over for my good, I don't know,
honorable
conscience,
mention.
I guess.
Yeah. Fair enough. Same with Mage Seeker. I think that's not going to make it, but boy, do I love that game.
Theater Rhythm is the only other game that's surprisingly in my top 10.
Yeah, bring that over.
That I haven't mentioned
You can bring over Forza to complete my complete evolution of becoming an Xbot. So
yes, that's perfect. Actually,
how does it feel to like truly?
I don't know. A second has gone by and I feel like an Xbot. I don't know.
Feels good.
I don't have anything clever to say.
Feels good. Okay.
I bet.
A warm feeling over my body. I feel like Phil Spencer's just giving me a hug from behind.
Sure.
Let's do a lot more than that.
That's a really specific feeling. I can appreciate that. It's good. Okay. Not seeing a whole lot.
I have let me look through my list.
Because again,
I only have one other indie I would really want to consider, and that's Cocoon.
Oh, I thought you said Planet of Lana.
Okay,
Cocoon.
Yeah, Cocoon is just like.
And Alana nailed it
It's a
on the
great game.
vibe and the music, as we talked about.
Yeah.
Totally lovely. But as far as the gameplay, it just, even as a Limbo like, it just wasn't even as good as that. And even that I wouldn't call like amazing gameplay. It was serviceable for a really cool experience. I don't know if that makes sense. Anyway,
Sure.
Episodely reminder that games like Resident Evil 4 and Dead Space Remake don't count because we just did those last episode, but big games that we're omitting this year. You know, to make
And
room
the
for other ones.
I think one of the major publications gave Phantom Liberty like their game of the year. That was
stuff like that. Yeah, like which hey,
that was all in one category.
How bold of that, you know,
truly
that
brave, truly brave,
so brave, yeah.
Brave and stunning on some level too.
Yeah.
Probably.
Right,
So, you know what? This is a pretty good list. This is a pretty healthy size.
Yeah.
I'm
I think
kind of
so,
proud
too.
of us showing some restraint here.
I don't think there's anything from my top 10 that isn't on here.
My whole 10 is strangely present, so
Yeah.
And
we
no
know Dan
fighting.
has a
I
very,
didn't have
very
to, like,
comprehensive top 10.
Well, I might
so...
have to do, you know, I didn't have to do any like Weasley stuff, so.
I definitely don't think that far ahead, Jeff.
I know. Dan did so much research in putting his top 10
He really
together.
did.
Dan the
He really did.
researcher.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So we've got, it's like 27-ish games or something like that, 26 games, something like that, that we need to whittle down to a list of 10. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started by moving things like Mage Seeker. I kind of just wanted it in our honorable mentions list. I'm going to leave it at the top here. That's not going to go anywhere. Maybe Talos Principle 2 as well. Probably won't squeeze on here, or maybe it will.
No, you're right. That's not going to be in the 10.
Okay.
But it is absolutely like one of the best beyond even the indie genre. It's just one of the best of the year for sure.
Yeah. Yep. I know it's got a lot of love from folks.
Echo that in a big way for sure.
Awesome.
Agreed. Now I've been playing a little bit of Fire Emblem Engage, and I'm really enjoying it. It didn't crack my top 10 personally, so from what I've played so far. A handful of hours. Do we need to hang on before we?
Well, when it came out in January, it was my number one for at least a month.
There you go. That matters, man. That matters.
So maybe we wait for a minute before we officially.
No, I don't know if it'll make it over. To be honest, just with all the other stuff I see here, it's not one I would fight for. Even though I think that game is pretty aces. So.
Yeah,
I like it.
Really
I like that game a lot too. It's just not. Yeah, it's not with the other stuff that's already here. It's not going to make it.
The landmark year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Even the stuff that we didn't even move over, like we were just like, it's not going to even. We're not even going to talk about it. Why move it over? And there's even some stuff in the far left column that's still like, that's really good too. But
yeah.
I'm gonna do something a little different.
This year,
a little different.
Like Modern Warfare 3. Everyone go buy that game.
I'm gonna put these over. I'm just gonna do something a little different. I'm gonna put these over, and then I want us to name things that we think are kind of like on the bubble that might not make it, and then we'll talk about those. So what's on the chaos? I think Fire Emblem Engage is probably on the bubble. I don't know if it might sneak in there.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else. I don't want to be the only one naming things. So
I think Cocoon and Convergence might be. Well, Cocoon is a bubble game because I was the only one that brought it up. But okay, that's fair. All
right. Okay, that's good. We're getting things moving.
Is Theatrhythm a bubble game? I love that game with you.
Yeah,
Jeff,
it's literally my number 10. So it's not like it's super high.
Might be a bubble game.
That's
so it's again like looking at like these.
Look at all the juggernauts.
Shared list.
Again,
it's
a celebration of some of the greatest video game music of all time, but it's technically been done before.
And a reminder to hang on to a darling. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
everyone deserves a darling. So if you have that game that everyone's just like,
right.
Yeah, remember, just a reminder, you fight for it as much as you can.
Tim, I think you were gonna ask about Mortal Kombat 1.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Is that a bubble game? I feel like it is based on.
That's up to.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a really fun and creative, like a soft reboot of the universe. I thought that there was some cool stuff that they did there, but I don't know. Fighting games for me are never like, as far as a genre as a whole, it's not like, oh man, I love fighting games. It's like, oh, these are fun, but then I move on. So
it sounds like Dan and I are like fair weather fighting game people.
Yeah.
We'll check almost all of them out, but like don't stick with any of them.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so we got some bubbles that we're listing. I think Liza P is a bubble game for sure because we don't really have a staunch defender. I think I've played it the most and I really liked it. And I think all of us admire what it's doing.
Well, yeah, I've listened to a lot of podcasts of people who did play it, saying how friendly it was to new people for the genre and the Souls-like genre and stuff like that.
I agree with that.
The tutorial was a little better. It's not like, you come across some asshole, unbeatable boss the very first thing, like some Souls games do.
It takes a while to get to that, but it does happen. But yeah, it does take.
Yeah. Well, it's not like the very first thing that happens.
Oh yeah.
I was games.
Yeah, Elden Ring was like, here's open world, and here's that big boss guy that's going to annihilate you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It took like 18 hours to get to that, which is really good. So, and by the way, it's one of those things where the wall that I hit with Liza P doesn't feel like anything I couldn't overcome. It was more of just kind of like, I don't want to put in the effort it's going to take to I think I need to respec a couple of things with this weapon. Like, it was one of those scenarios.
Gotcha.
Is Forza Motorsport a bubble game, or is that like?
Yeah,
probably a bubble game. Yeah.
I do love that game.
I do too.
Yeah, I love that game a lot.
Sim racers are very much my jam, but like at the end of the day, like if a racer were to get on our list, which I think Gran Turismo did one year.
Horizon, Forza Horizon.
Horizon definitely did.
It's the exception to the rule, I would say. Right. Those types of games. So.
That one was one of my favorites. What was that? 21.
Well, universally,
2021 was
caught everybody, even the non-racer fans.
There was definitely like
a
pretty big hole. There was a huge hole. I don't know why I'm saying that so seductively.
Keep saying it that way, yeah.
For 2021, that allowed like not small games. That's a wrong word, but you know what I mean. Games that we wouldn't consider other years.
Yeah.
Less obvious game of the year games.
Exactly. Yeah.
Totally agree with that. Okay. All right. Is Armored Core 6 a bubble game for overall game of the year for our crew, or is it?
I
know it's
think it is, but I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I played like a decent amount of it. And it's excellent.
It is excellent.
I don't want to disparage its difficulty for me, because obviously that's a thing that's going to be different for everyone.
Yep.
But yeah, it's I didn't get to the end, so I don't know. I guess I couldn't speak to like the overall experience if it stays consistent. I mean, I'm assuming it does, but yeah.
Okay.
I don't think based off of how little I did play.
So, what about Dave the Diver? It's in my top 10. Just at the very bottom of the list though, because of the juggernauts this year. But boy, is it fantastic! It's my favorite of the small games that we ranked.
I think you might have loved it the most out of all of us.
I think I did. But
I absolutely loved it. I followed it all through early access about a year before it came out.
You're the one who told me about this game. I had never heard of it, but yeah, you told me about it.
So it's Kyle's fault. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I really like this game. It's just not in my, it's not my 10.
Maybe it's on the bubble. Maybe
it's on the bubble, but like
bubble. We're gonna get so sick of that word by the time.
Yeah, I like saying it. I like
bubble.
Again, I'm looking at all these games on this list here.
Yeah.
Sluggers. You know what I mean? Not that Dave the Diver is not a slugger, but like it is definitely a David and Goliath type of thing.
The other thing is, unless it is someone's like, dude, this was my 2023 game. If it's not that, and we don't have a majority of us that have played it, that's where it gets a little tricky with some of these. Like, I'm going to guess, Kyle, I'm just going to make this assumption. Tell me if I'm off. I think Like a Dragon Gaiden is one of your tops of the tops games. And so,
but I weirdly this year I might be willing to let that one go, to cheer harder for like Remnant 2,
Oh, interesting. All right.
I know, it is interesting, yeah. The very first year of this whole entire podcast, that one guy wasn't cheering for an RGG studio game, so...
All right, well, let's put it on the bubble, but this doesn't mean out, by the way. This just means...
we're going to have to start making sacrifices, and people are going to start losing darlings, so...
I'm going to put Dave the Diver there, too, but I am probably going to see... We'll see what's left. I'm going to try to make a case for it to be on the list. We'll see if we get to that point. With that same logic, I think Armored Core then is on the bubble, but I think these three have a chance of maybe fighting their way back on. Possibly, we'll see. Because now we're still left with Alan Wake, Baldur's Gate, Diablo 4, Final Fantasy, Hi-Fi Rush, Hogwarts, Spider-Man 2, Octopath 2, Remnant 2, Sea of Stars, Jedi Survivor, Starfield. I mean, how are we gonna?
We're definitely in a place now where most of these here, all of us have played, which is cool.
Yeah, right.
So that's nice.
Well, here's the next one. If I'm the only one cheering super hard for Diablo 4, is that a bubble game?
It's in my 10 somewhere. I already closed my list. Sorry. I should probably leave that open. Duh, Jeff.
Dan, you played this for a bit. Is this one that you think is... Do you think it's a viable top 10 game of the year?
So I did. I just comprised my list, guys. Look at that. I am
Dude,
prepared.
look at
now.
you.
Whoa.
Look at you, yeah.
I didn't even think it would have. Like, I was cool with you being the.
So was I.
Man, the dude.
I thought you were the
podcast,
wild, you were the Charlie of the group. You were
this
the wild
is what it is.
I
man.
mean,
wild card.
I totally shooting for my hip. You know how I am. I'm from the heart.
Love
You know,
it.
so I just
Yeah,
made
no,
the
I
list
love
real
it.
quick.
In the
The hip or the heart?
Dan
both,
in the
both.
moment.
I mean,
Dan in
I
real
did
life.
enjoy it. I know like things I've said previously made it seem like I didn't.
I think that was mostly with like visuals. It was the hard thing is when we're talking about other categories.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily bleed over to how you felt overall about a
Right.
specific game. Like for Planet of
Yeah, you
Lana,
would
we
think
gushed about
if
the
you-
music so much, but it's
Yeah.
not on our top 10 as an overall game.
Sure.
But
Right.
the music was so
Yeah.
good.
That's why we
Hey,
break down things into categories.
you would think-
because
you would
things
think
dominate certain,
Based on the
you know,
last like
lanes.
3 weeks of discussions, you'd think I hate Diablo 4 because it
I
has
definitely
really
did. I absolutely did. I was like,
yeah,
what
but
is-
this is
what
like
is-
my
what
number
is
7
this?
of the year. I straight up loved my time.
Then
with this
that's
game.
gonna stay where
Yeah.
it is for now. Then, because I know Dan played it and enjoyed it, even if it's not like the top
Yeah.
of the top. Kyle
Yeah.
loves it. Jeff, I know you played a
I
lot of
love
that
it.
game
Yeah.
and really loved your time with it. So we're gonna leave it there. I only played the opening of it and was very impressed.
Oh,
Not
Dan's
really.
leaving. He's
It's a
mad.
pretty good opening. Yeah.
He was
It's a
forced
great
to make a list and
opening.
he left.
Yeah, all the
I
cultist
barely,
stuff and
I barely got through that whole opening section. I met who the boss was. Kind of like met the Sid voice character guy. You know, he
Yeah,
wrote
yeah.
off
Lorath, yeah.
kind of gave me instructions. So like,
Be right
what is
back.
that? It's probably like an hour and a
That's
half in.
All right.
Thing.
No, that's a good introduction to it.
So
for
it's
sure.
enough for me to be like, I admire what this game is doing. But I didn't play nearly as much of that as I did something like Baldur's Gate 3, which I would argue on our shared list, for example, must be on there because of
Yeah.
how much a bunch of us love it.
It
And there's
must be. Yeah.
there's also that added factor of just I don't know yet where it's going to land on our lists, on our
yeah,
shared
I
list.
don't either.
But it has to be on there somewhere, even if it doesn't win number one. It's just objectively one of the most excellent things that video games has produced in a long time. Even
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
some of us didn't get as hooked on it as others, that doesn't. I mean, it's still objectively just kind of like, wow, that thing's amazing. You know what I mean?
It did splash,
There's a little bit of that.
It did splash, even though more people played Starfield than this game, but it did make
Exactly.
splash for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I spent
No,
more
that's
time.
not true
activated.
because the
Xbox.
sales.
Xbox.
The sales, though.
Bill Spencer, this one's for you.
All right, so we've got to throw a few more onto the bubble. So I'm just gonna float out a few that I don't know that everyone has played. I know Hogwarts Legacy, everyone hasn't played. I know Sea of Stars, everyone hasn't played a ton. We played a little bit of it, I guess. Maybe all of us have played some of Sea of Stars. Maybe that's a
About
bad
3 hours of it. Yeah.
That might
maybe
be
that's
not-
a bad
yeah, That might
example.
not be a good example.
Hi-Fi Rush might be
I
an
don't-
example of
I
one
don't know,
that-
man. I think a lot of us here like that game too.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's like my number 4 of the year.
Yeah.
Because
I think.
by the way, I fired it back up. I fired a couple of these back up this week. Hogwarts
Yeah.
Legacy, Star Wars, Hi-Fi Rush. I just
Smart.
wanted to like,
Get your beak wet.
like let me
I
see
mean,
if I'm
those are
still
like,
as in love
those
with
are
you as I thought.
first half of the
But-
year games. That makes sense to revisit those.
So I fired a few of those up, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, these are some of my favorite.
yeah, I was right.
experiences. Okay, all right.
I
okay.
was right about me, about my own take. Yeah.
I was right about me.
While Dan's away, we should do the right thing and just cut Final Fantasy 16 off.
Yeah, let's just get it out of
Yeah.
here.
Get out of
let's
here.
just get it out of
Get it
here.
out of here.
Throw it to the
That
other side.
linear bogus
It's definitely
game,
not
right,
number
guys?
one for at
No
least 2 of
exploration, light RPG, bogus,
Action is boring and
repetitive action
yeah,
combos.
and the quests are stupid. I'm gonna go get flour for some cupcakes. What?
Ugh.
Even though those are side quests, and you don't have to do them. But yeah, just trash. Final trash to see.
Anyways, that's gonna be top 3.
So the ones that
Yeah,
are a little
it's-
yeah.
So here are some of the ones that I haven't mentioned. We just talked about Diablo, how that probably has to stay. We haven't talked about Remnant 2, or I guess I did mention Sea of Stars. Mario Brothers Wonder and Tears of the Kingdom. I don't think I could keep this conversation going if those weren't on our top 10. That's just me talking out loud, though. Maybe I'm assuming too much with at least Mario Wonder. That's one of my favorite games of the year, but is that not everybody's?
Yeah, I mean, I it's not in my 10, but
Not mine either.
it's not something you wouldn't have to convince me much to be like, hey, this Mario game needs to be on here. It's like, yeah,
For
really a Mario game,
context,
sure,
it's in the
yeah.
bottom half of my top 10. I have it at number 8.
I'll be interested to hear what Dan says about that, because if he feels pretty strongly about it, you could see me pretty quickly being like, yeah, put it on there, because like I'm pretty ready to let something like Remnant 2 go as well. This is a landmark year, like I don't know how many darlings are gonna make it on, If there's
Probably
four,
none.
if there's 4 darlings that all of us only played, one of us have only played each of, that's half the list. You know what I mean?
Because we still have to get rid of 2 of these. That are here.
Yeah. So like Remnant 2. Yeah, exactly.
So if
that's
these bubble
why
games,
I'm like, conceding really quickly, because I'm just
these
like,
bubble games: Fire Emblem Engage, Cocoon, Convergence, Theatrhythm, Mortal Kombat 1, Lies of P,
popped.
Forza, and Dredge. I'm gonna go ahead and leave those in our honorable mention list because I don't think they're making their way back.
Those games slapped, my friends. Mortal Kombat 1, quite literally. A lot of slapping in that game.
There's a lot of slapping, yeah.
Hey, by the way, while Dan's away until he comes back, because I do want to get his thoughts on Mario Brothers Wonder, of course, and so we'll talk about some of these things.
I bet he loved it as much as he beat it like you did, right? So
yeah, he beat it.
He 100%ed it. He been way more than I did. He played
telling
it
you,
way
man,
more.
like that might work its way back over, and someone's gonna have to start thinking about murdering something they love. So
it's a weird year because to me that was the best side-scrolling Mario game since Super Mario Brothers World, which is just kind of like universally known as the best of what side-scrolling Mario.
Is that the one they re-released with Bowser's Fury?
No, that was Mario 3D World, which was also excellent. But Super Mario World on Super Nintendo. Super Mario World on Super Nintendo.
Oh wow, that's
the one that just kind of like it perfected the platforming feel, how jumping feels, how it feels to like glide, and like just like the pixel perfect where you land and all that stuff, and how to find secrets. And so that just kind of became the standard.
Yeah.
And so this is the first one, in my opinion, that has reached that standard, and in some ways, exceeded it just in terms of some of its creativity and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so to me, it belongs on there. But as I look at this list, here are the ones that I haven't put as much time into that I wouldn't be heartbroken about, but I understand why they should probably be on here. Sea of Stars, Octopath Traveler 2, the JRPGs, basically. I haven't spent much time with them.
Racist.
So,
we got to tease a Dan, and then he's gone again.
I know. Here's what I'll.
Overheard Octopath
What'd you
Traveler
do?
2
What'd you do?
Might need to get out of
Cut
here.
everything.
So Dan, we decided that some of these other bubble games are just up here. These are kind of our. These are our games.
No. That's we were waiting for that one for you.
Yeah, these are kind of our like really strong bubble games that do have a chance of replacing something.
Sure.
Jeff and Kyle really enjoyed what he played at Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I know Jeff
really
super admired like the music and the visuals, especially. I just don't know that platforming Mario type jumpy games are your thing. Maybe is that fair to say?
I prefer the Odyssey
not my
experience.
thing for sure, yeah.
And not Kyle's thing either. So that being said, Dan, you 100%ed it. I was just talking about how I have it at number 8 on my list.
Oh,
I think it's fantastic. I love it, but I didn't like. What would it replace? We still have to get rid of 2 of these. Or if we're going to replace many of these back over,
I could be swayed pretty easily if you felt pretty strongly about Wonder, because I don't know, it seems like a no death thing to me.
Right.
It's like when you do play a Mario game, like are you talking like a strictly just a platforming game? Like something about it feels different. You know what I mean? The quality,
this
like it
one.
just absolutely. It just feels. The way the characters feel, the way that everything moves, the locomotion of everything, like there's just something different about a Mario game whenever you're playing a platformer.
Yeah, because I mentioned before, like whatever the last like I don't know 2 or 3 side-scrolling Marios have been, like they just didn't resonate with me. Like there was just something about it that like I was just like I don't know, that looks kind of like whatever, which sucks and is weird to say with their main. That's Mario's Nintendo. Nintendo is Mario. Like that's
49ers I think 49ers just won.
There you go.
They intercepted.
They just got an interception on
Packers'
last chance. Yes.
Yeah.
This guy.
What a good game. What a good game.
You know what? And Mario, much like the 49ers, is a real winner. I don't know.
Damn. I like that.
But like, I don't know.
Do you think it's worth fighting? Like some of the comparisons we'd have to make would be like, hey, do we kick off Sea of Stars, one of the best JRPG indie games probably in a while, at least from what I'm hearing everyone say about it, or Octopath Traveler 2? Did we knock that one because?
Yeah, does it trade places with something that's on the list over there?
Are we going to argue about that versus Starfield? Like we just got to figure out like, what would it replace? And that's kind of
like I don't want to like base it like because I'm trying to like kind of balance it in a fair like in my head. I'm not going to be like, well, I'm going to look at my list and that's how it's like I don't want to do that.
Where do you have it? I am curious. That would help me.
Yeah, I would like to know too.
Mario, it's actually in the same spot as you, Tim. It's actually
number 8.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's at number 8.
You guys hated this. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
but
it's like, if it's not
you know
3
what's
or
ranked...
above, you hated it. So.
Yeah.
For me, what's ranked right above it is Starfield. I have ranked right above it. So I don't want to kick off something like Starfield. And I'll just say this real quick, just in case anyone is like eyeing Starfield a little bit, like why is it on there? This was my first time experiencing a Bethesda game in a way that I feel like Bethesda fans for years have experienced them, where they've loved them and they're like, dude, this is what exploration is like, and I can go where I want, do what I want, pick, choose my own path. And the Bethesda games, I've just had trouble, like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about these games. Yeah. They haven't clicked with me, and I've always felt like on the outside looking in. And I know that Jeff, for example, you can relate to that when it comes to stuff like Zelda. You're kind of like, hey, I understand it's beloved, but man, sometimes I'm just feel like I'm out here watching everyone else have fun. And I can't quite get in there with you. This was the first.
Yeah, watching everybody else be wrong is just really frustrating.
It's so tough. So anyway, that's what Starfield was for me. So like, I can acknowledge a lot of the faults people point to with it. The eyes do look dead inside. I totally get that. I really, really do.
That still
Gosh, I love this game. Like, this game hit me hard, and I just thought it was so good. And I mean,
space is pretty cool. So
space is awesome. Yeah.
Space is rad. And there are so many great stories in that game. So many well-written stories. It's crazy.
I've got it ranked right above the best Mario game, in my opinion. Well, okay, the best 2D Mario game for sure. We don't have to talk about 3D ones since Super Nintendo. That's
That's pretty
insane.
much. Yeah, pretty much. It's like literally Mario 3, Mario World, and this Mario, or and like in my opinion, the top 3 Mario side-scrolling Mario games. Like, no. So
talk to me about Sea of Stars then, Jeff. How high do you have that one? I can stop mentioning it if it's up really high for you. I'll leave it alone.
No, it's not that high. Well, I think it's this could be tied back to what I mentioned before with my lack of nostalgia for this genre. It's my number 9. But I still loved it so much, couldn't put it down. Yeah. I even tried to put it down and failed miserably. Like, I just couldn't stop until I actually beat it. And
I just pictured it stuck to your hand and you just can't like get it off.
Yeah.
Get off!
The controller won't. Had to go to bed with the controller. It was really
Dan, you played and liked this game too, but I know that you had some drawbacks compared to maybe, I think, Chained Echoes. You maybe even liked more than this. Did I remember that correctly, or am I misremembering your thoughts on that?
I think I like
equal at least. Okay.
I think I like Sea of Stars a little more. I think there was some unique stuff going on with the with Chained Echoes that was cool. Like, story wise, I would say there's actually a lot of like inspiration there for Xenogears, and I mean that story's wild. And the combat was really cool in Chained Echoes. Kind of punishing actually. It was definitely, I think it was more punishing than Sea of Stars. And there's some timing stuff in Sea of Stars that if you're not good at, that could be a problem. But then there's also the stuff you can equip in Sea of Stars to make it more accessible, which I think is nice and appreciated. So, but I like Sea of Stars slightly more. So.
Okay. And you have this one on your top 10 of the year, right? Is it pretty high?
Yes. It's at 7. So.
Oh, he hated it too. Okay.
Everyone hated games this year. Wow.
And Kyle,
if it's not number 1, you hate it.
I played 3 hours of it. I really liked it. I will play it at some point. I really should have just bought it on Switch because I would have beaten it there. For whatever reason, like loading up an Xbox and playing like a a game like this on a big screen. You know,
don't like playing Xbox, Kyle.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that Phil? Oh no, I
flip-flopping. Are we flip-flopping? Are we flip-flopping?
I heard someone knocking. Oh my god. They're sending their snipers out to get me.
I thought he was shooting you from behind.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Imagine if some hands just came up from behind Kyle and just
for those types of games, like they just feel like handheld games to me, you know? So I feel like I would have beaten that game if I had it on the Switch, whereas like wanting to turn on my Xbox to like play this game instead of like turning on something bigger like Starfield or Forza or something, you know, like I don't know. It was I had too many distractions there, you know. But I really loved what I played. I loved the music. I loved everything. 3 hours is a long time. I know what that game's about, you know. I don't know what the story is, but like I got it, you know, and I think it's real quality, real solid stuff. So
okay. All right, so we've got to make some decisions here. Here's where Kyle, I don't know if Remnant 2 is going to make it on this list unless you get some support from Dan or Jeff, who put, I think, a little time into it. I thought.
Yeah, I barely put anything into it.
I'm going to be screaming into the void on that one. I don't want to do that. I don't have energy.
And I feel like we might we might just have to say one more time, everyone should play Dave the Diver and be okay with it not being on the list. Hey, you mentioned handheld games. The reason I put, I think my total count was like 34 hours or something, was because of the Steam Deck. That's why I played it for as long as I did. Now, if I had known, hey, it's coming to Switch in like a month and a half, because it did come to Switch in October. Wonderful game for the Switch.
Yeah. I bet it looks great on the OLED. I bet it looks beautiful. Oh,
it probably looks great. I bet you it looks great. But all that to say, great handheld experience, just like Sea of Stars, Octopath. Like these games also are fun on the big screen, but if you're looking for games that you can spend a bunch of time with on a handheld, those are some good suggestions. All right, so we're gonna have to definitely move these three: Like a Dragon, Dave the Diver, Armored Core 6, and Remnant 2. I think they're staying on the honorable mention list.
Next year, I'll be cashing in my Like a Dragon credit to cheer for the one that's about to come out.
And you can hold that for like 11 months because it comes next week.
Well, it is, next week, next Thursday.
Well, that one has more what I call Tim elements in the game, so I mean, it might not be a hard fight.
I think, dude, because the
last crafting and stuff in the game.
Previous Like a Dragon game with Afro, I forget his name. He's a hilarious.
Ichiban.
Yeah. That's the first Yakuza universe game that kind of hooked me in. I think I put, I don't know, 7-8 hours into it. I was like, well, this is wacky.
You got it, yeah.
What is this? And I loved it.
That's enough to catch a vibe, yeah.
I do think this upcoming one might be the one that finally does it for me. We'll see. Okay, Super Mario Bros. Wonder is still hanging on. It might be competing against Sea of Stars because we've got two people who kind of have these in the same area on their top 10, and two others don't have it on their list at all. So they're kind of in a very similar spot, honestly. Octopath Traveler 2, I assume, is up pretty high for Dan and Jeff, maybe Kyle too, right?
Yeah.
I have it above
my top 10.
To gauge where it's at for me, I have it above Diablo 4.
Okay.
Like right above it. So it's 6 and Diablo 4 is 7.
Got it.
But I still love Diablo. Man, I love Diablo 4 so much. The writing in Octopath Traveler 2, it still blows me away. And it also was competing against my own biases against those types of games, like just turn-based RPGs and stuff. So maybe there's a surprise element that made it.
A couple crazy questions for you then. Do people have Alan Wake 2 in their top 10 as of right now?
I do.
Yes, and I'm not even, again, like I'm like 7-ish hours into it. But
me
yes.
and Dan are on the same spot, and he and I are 10 cheerleaders.
I finished, and it's number 5 for me overall. I loved it.
Okay.
And
this one felt like a no-brainer to me. I don't.
Okay, I'm just making sure. I'm going to ask the same question about Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, that's in my top 5. It's in my 5.
Yeah, it's in my top 5.
Yeah. Final Fantasy 16, of course, is in everyone's top 10, if not top 5, top 3, whatever. Okay. Hi-Fi Rush.
It's in my 10. It's on number 8 though.
I've got it at number 4, and I think it bumped up a couple spots after I went back and fired it back up again because it had moved down to like 6, 7 range, and I fired it back up.
I probably should have fired it back up too.
And I was like, dang it, I love this.
You gotta reignite the fire on those January games for sure.
So, but this one, I mean, is this kind of in the same position then as some of these, or is Hi-Fi?
I mean, it might be since it's absent from other lists. I don't know.
Dan, you don't have it on your top 10.
So if I were to just like make it really simple, if like, well, I would put Mario in place of, it would be either in place of Hi-Fi Rush or Diablo. And that's, again, not a detriment to those games at all. It's just that's what I would,
talking about making the hard decisions right now.
Yeah.
Wait, Kyle, where do you have Diablo?
Diablo's like 7 for me.
Okay.
Oh, same spot for me. Okay.
So these are all in very similar boats. From what I'm hearing, where there's like a lot of love for
you're catching the right vibe on that.
For Wonder, Sea of Stars, Hi-Fi Rush, Diablo 4. There's a lot of love for them. There's no one like dissing any of these games. It's just more of when you stack them up against the rest of.
They're trash. They're trash compared to the rest.
Didn't even talk about Hogwarts. I've got Hogwarts at 6.
That's 4 for me. It's God, I love the.
That's probably enough.
I love the piss out of that game.
Dan, you haven't played it yet.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And Kyle liked it.
None of my 10, but not because it's not good. Because I had nothing but great things to say about that game.
Okay.
And you have Hi-Fi Rush pretty high. You know, you're talking a top 5 game.
I have it at 4.
Yeah. So Hogwarts and Hi-Fi Rush feel similar.
Yeah, that's how.
Yeah. They are pretty similar.
Feels the same for me.
They're going through parallel journeys. Yeah,
they are. So they might be locks, but maybe toward the bottom. But they might be locks to be on there.
Right.
Spider-Man 2. everyone's got it in their list.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe. No. I'm just kidding.
Jedi Survivor.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
No, obviously not for me, but
Dan, do you have it?
Yes.
And then Starfield is definitely on me and Kyle's. We talked about it, but is this similar to like Kyle? Where do you have that one? Is it up
That's
really
my
high?
Hi-Fi Rush. That's my number 4.
Okay. All right. So this is actually 10 we're looking at right here.
How did we do that?
These are
That
10.
was like, I feel like this is a magic trick and you just took my watch. This is crazy.
I'm just saying, like, this is 10 right here, and that
I
means
say that looks good, man. I say we all just say it out loud that this podcast hates Diablo 4. No, I'm kidding. I'm being dramatic. No, I think that this is right, and I think that I think the way that you just did that, how you just kind of made everyone explain kind of where is what, like by natural causes.
That was a parenting trick, by the way. I've done that with my kids in a totally different scenario. I won't get into it, but yeah, I actually have done something like that.
Pretty freaking brilliant. No wonder you're able to maintain like 18 different kids at one time. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So that means, for dear listeners, if you're not watching this, you can see Mario Brothers Wonder, Sea of Stars, and Diablo 4. They're pretty much at the top of our honorable mentions list. If we were doing the top 13, they'd be on there. But just for our shared list with kind of where things ranked, these are not officially in our shared top 10. Mario Brothers Wonder is in my top 10. Sea of Stars is, I think, a Dan and Jeff's top 10.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Diablo 4 is definitely in Kyle. So, like, hey, these games are getting a lot of love
from
each of us individually, just maybe not quite enough as a shared group to make this list. So here we go. Here's our alphabetical list of the 10. Is Alan Wake, Baldur's Gate, Final Fantasy, and Hi-Fi Rush, Hogwarts, Spider-Man, Octopath, Jedi Survivor, Starfield, and Tears of the Kingdom.
Taka!
All right. Well, we already did a little bit of the legwork here. In my opinion, where we kind of have an idea of stuff like Starfield,
Hi-Fi Rush,
Hogwarts, in no particular order. I'm just moving them up here. That are not necessarily at the top half. I think these are definitely bottom half games of our shared lists. Did I miss one?
I think you're right.
Now, there are 2 games in these remaining 7 that I don't think are on everyone's top 10. Tears of the Kingdom.
You're right.
Is not in everyone's top 10.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, this doesn't mean it can't be.
There's
our
3
number
games,
one
actually.
overall.
There's 3 games.
Oh, what else?
Dan doesn't have Jedi Survivor. And then Alan Wake 2 is not in my 10.
Oh, so there's 4, because I don't have Baldur's Gate 3 in my 10.
And Octopath isn't in yours. Yeah.
All right. So
there's way too many. There's way too many to count.
Yeah. The only reason I say that is because that sometimes, not always, but that can sometimes help us more quickly kind of split these into some groupings.
Piece together the top 5,
I feel like it didn't help this time. But
this time it didn't.
It does sometimes help. It does.
It does sometimes. I don't think it necessarily did this time, but I think we've got Hogwarts, Hi-Fi Rush, and Starfield in our bottom half. Does anyone want to be a brave soul and suggest what else might belong in the bottom
half? Does Octopath Traveler 2 belong in the top of that bottom half? Maybe.
I think so.
I prefer to you guys.
As the other lover of the game.
Yeah, that's tough because it's top 3 for me. But
okay.
But again, we're comparing all these games together, so it's looking at it individually is easier than looking at it as a whole. So, whole.
So then, Dan, as far as like
Bubble,
you're spending a lot of time playing Baldur's Gate 3 right now. At least recently you have.
So much time.
Does that include like you're fully loving this game, or is it like it's great, but Octopath is still my jam over something like Baldur's Gate 3? I'm curious where you are on that personally.
Octopath is right above Baldur's Gate. I'm actually taking a very small break from Baldur's Gate because I'm feeling burnt out because I'm 110 hours into the game and I'm at Baldur's Gate and I don't want to end it on a sour note. So I'm actually I started Star Wars.
You're like trying to beat it and you're like, come on.
If you just got to Baldur's Gate, there's like 80 hours left of that game.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The third act is as long as Act 1 and 2 put together. So
right. So I don't want to burn up. Yeah.
Hey, by the way,
I was gonna say I started Star Wars, so
you did start Star Wars. Okay.
Oh,
yes,
cool.
Yes.
Oh, did you?
Awesome.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
By the way, I know this is a
tweet.
sidetrack, but early thoughts about it.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So jokes aside about the first one and Dragon Age Inquisition and all that, but remember how I was saying at that
We
time,
remember, Dan.
I just wanted to be like, give me some more open areas, kind of town stuff, moving around. That's literally what this one's doing already.
You're right.
So I'm like, thank you. This is exactly what I asked for.
And it gets better, by the way. Some of the other areas you open up
there
are
you
even
go.
more what you're wanting.
So basically, they listen to me and Derek.
Just you. Yes.
Yeah.
Just you and Derek.
But when they heard you, they thought y'all were crazy. But we're like, well, there's a good idea in there anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just try it, see what happens. Yeah.
Kyle and Jeff, where do you guys have Baldur's Gate on your personal lists? Is this a middle of the list for us shared, or is this
it's middle top? It's literally middle for me. It's
number 2
5 for me.
Number 2 for Kyle. Okay. I don't want to downplay how high it should be then, because Dan's got it. Sounds like at 4. I've got it, and I'm not kidding. It's at number 11. The only reason it just got bumped by Dave the Diver is I had to be honest about what caught my attention and I truly loved this year, as opposed to what I think is objectively like a more impressive.
Lists are about heart.
So it was. I just went with my heart. I was like, that Dave the Diver just captured me. I don't know why. It just did.
Well, I mean, that's why I have like 3 majorly acclaimed games not in my 10 at all. Like, I mean,
not everything can capture everybody.
Just, yeah, exactly. It's not,
I just want to be clear that even though Baldur's Gate isn't on my list, I actually did rank down through like into the 20s of stuff that I've played enough to feel like I could kind of give it a position. And Baldur's Gate, it was sitting at like 8, 9, 10 range since I've tried it. It's really, really good. It just kind of got bumped down as a few other things popped up.
Dave captured Tim's heart. Get wrecked, Baldur's Gate.
Tim and Dave forever. I'm going to carve it into a tree. No, coral.
You should.
We got it.
You should.
Okay, so I'm trying to identify our kind of like middle of the pack games, because we've got Hogwarts, Hi-Fi Rush, and Starfield. I think are pretty solid at the 8, 9, and 10 slot somewhere, and we can order those in a second. I'm trying to identify Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Octopath. Do those?
I mean, it sounds like to me that like Baldur's Gate 3 and Octopath 2 are like middle of the pack games.
Like towards
because they both have like one, but because they both have kind of like one person or maybe a couple people who feel pretty strongly about it, but probably not more strongly than like Final Fantasy 16 or Zelda or Spider-Man, so
So
I'm
like
just,
in the
not to name what I think the 3 or 4 are going to be, but
I think these 5 are our top 5.
I think so too. Yeah, then that's the 5 I literally had in mind the entire time. Not my 5, but like our 5.
Our shared, yeah. But I don't want to assume too much about Alan Wake 2. So Jeff hasn't played it, or hasn't played it much. You've played it some, so you have an idea of like the vibe of what it's going for. Yeah,
I got like 4 hours in or something like that.
Okay, so you've definitely
pretty good amount.
Then you've spent some time with it. Kyle, of course, is a major Remedy fan. Has played all their games and has started to dig into this game. And we know for a fact will finish this game. Dan is caught up, I think, through Alan Wake and is working his way through Alan Wake 2 now.
Yes.
And I completed it and absolutely loved it. But is it also a middle of the pack game, or is it in the top? Like, is it the bottom of this 5? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is it kind of alongside Baldur's Gate and Octopath based on how we just classified those for some of those same reasons? I wonder if Alan Wake 2 falls in that same bucket. As I look at Final Fantasy 16, which I know has multiple first place votes, Spider-Man 2, which I know has multiple, if not all of us, top 3 votes, I think, or top 4 votes. Same with Jedi Survivor.
It's really high. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
Zelda.
Dan, do you have Baldur's Gate over Alan Wake on your personal list?
Yeah, and so Alan Wake's like in the middle for me, and that's mainly because
right?
Mainly because I just
I've got it right at number 5,
and it's in the middle for me too, but it's climbed up from 10 to 5 since like last week. Because
I bet here's my issue. Here's the main reason I haven't. I didn't rank it higher. Not that I haven't. I can't give you a reason as to why I haven't played it more. I don't know. I'm just very finicky. But Alan Wake 2 not being higher is because it's such a story-driven game that if I don't beat the story, like, or at least get to a critical point in like the third act or second act or whatever, like, why would I can't justify we're putting it higher? Like,
dude, you're so right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know. Once I get to that holy crap, I'm sure there's going to be multiple holy crap moments like Tim is describing.
Yep.
You've described the levels over the past few episodes, and I'm like, when I get to those episodes, I'm gonna or those chapters, I'm gonna lose my mind. Like I know I will, and then it'll immediately go in my 10. Like it'll just immediately.
There's a chapter that Kyle just recently played, the We Sing chapter. I think Dan's probably gotten past that. If he's maybe he hasn't.
It depends on the order you're going in.
It is one of the
True.
most memorable things I've ever.
I've never seen.
I've never seen.
I called. So in Control, they did the ashtray maze, which like for me
Yeah,
was like
like
one of the
near the
coolest
end,
things
right?
in video games ever. And this is cooler than that.
Yep. I agree.
Wow.
Also,
This is
think
cooler
about
in that. This is cooler in that like by like 10 times. Like, and I love the ashtray maze. Like I was totally bewildered by that entire sequence, and they figured out a way to make it weirder and cooler and. I don't know. I don't know how to. I can't put
this
words to
game
it.
wasn't on my top 10 at all. And then as I got through that and a couple other chapters that I think have maybe not that level, but they're still in their own right insane and really well done. And then when the game wrapped up, I kind of looked at my list. I was like, how did that get at number 5? I didn't even have it ranked. I was like 10 hours in and it wasn't even on my top 10. But I
It's a
loved
climber,
it.
man.
When it absolutely climbed.
And we wait another week, and I get another 4 hours into it. It's probably up 3 more spots. You know what I mean? But
Probably.
it is what it is right now.
So then, I mean, I think we all kind of expected this, but that means our top 4 is likely comprised of Final Fantasy, Spider-Man, Jedi Survivor, and Tears of the Kingdom, and we have to hash those out. Does that sound fair, accurate? Is anybody going to be like, dude, this wasn't a fair
I think that 3 of us feel very strongly about Jedi Survivor that it makes sense, much like 3 of us feel very strongly
And
about
Zelda.
Zelda and it makes sense. Yeah.
Right. And the other
And
two,
then
four,
the
I
other
guess
two is
all
all
4 of
four
us
of
really
And the other
like,
2, all 4 of us have played and loved. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
makes it.
Dan,
it's
what do you
totally
think?
logical.
So I guess I'm the wrench in the works because not
For
and this
Jedi,
isn't,
yeah, at least.
no. Actually, for Zelda, actually, and mainly because much like I did with Breath of the Wild. So this is on me. You guys know how I played Breath of the Wild and how I did with Tears. I basically played like 5 to 10 hours of the story and then like 70 hours of just running around.
Yeah.
Getting my stamina and my hearts.
I don't think that's the wrong way to play it, though. You know,
Sure,
I didn't
yeah.
beat the game.
Oh,
I
of
still have
course.
2 dungeons left, and I'm 80 something hours in, and it's my number 1 game of the entire year. So,
oh well, there you go.
You know, yeah,
it's my number 1 as well.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
like
I
don't need to beat a game to be like, well, I can't be
So-
sure about it until
so
I see credits. You
Dan,
know,
if
like,
I
that's
can,
crazy.
before
Yeah,
you
it's not.
finish
It's also
that
not a
thought,
story game like that where it's kind of
Yeah.
like you have to
Final
finish
Fantasy
it to
16 is my number 9 game. So for
Sure.
the same reason that you're saying Zelda isn't super high on your list, I'd make the same argument against Final Fantasy 16.
We have-
not so much against it as much as for the other games. Not
we have
against.
2 number 1s versus going against 2 number 1s though, because Final Fantasy 16 is my number 1 game.
That's what I'm
So,
saying.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I
That's
mean,
why I don't
that's
think
interesting.
Zelda is kind of like quick to put it on the back burner because 2 of us have it.
Right. No, of course.
yeah.
So
If
just
anything,
throwing
those
out
2 will
there-
be neck and neck for sure.
I think so.
Wait, how low do you have Zelda, Dan?
It's at 9.
Oh,
Whoa!
Jesus Christ.
You might as well just like do what I did and just say the game sucks and not
which
put it on the list.
which I think speaks volumes for Alan Wake for me, because Alan Wake's like in the middle, but like because Alan Wake is so focused, and I mean you guys know how I am with story. Like I'm a story slut, you know.
Yeah.
Like I'm just a story whore.
Spread those sheets for stories. Yeah.
Yeah, spreading those
Hey,
sheets.
when you
Right.
played
I think
Breath
I
of
think
the
a lot
Wild
of us
and
here are story force gamers. Yeah.
in 2017, Dan, I know this is a minute ago, but do you remember
Could have been.
was Breath of the Wild really high up there for you personally, or was it kind of like, hey, that was a good time, but it's not my favorite thing? Because that was the same year of so many other great games
I know.
as well. So do you remember, like, did you have Breath of the Wild? Because I'm just wondering if maybe not unlike, like maybe you're somewhere between where Jeff is and then where Kyle and Tim are in terms of like, I like this kind of game, but I don't really like it. I don't fall in love with it like some people do. I'm trying to gauge that.
It would probably be in like it would definitely be in the top 5, because I mean like then when I went back and beat it, I was like this is fantastic. Like I put on it wasn't like I went back in and I played like an extra 5-10 hours and finished it. Like I put in another like 40 hours into Breath of the Wild, like when I finally like circled back around to it. It would probably be in like the 4th or 5th spot.
Okay.
When all is said and done.
I will say, I only ask you that because of this. I think Tears of the Kingdom, you've already experienced how they've improved the way everything in that game works, right? So gameplay wise, you've already I don't need to explain any of that to you. I will say, for whatever it's worth, story-wise, it's like 5 times better than what they did with Breath of the Wild. So you talk about like
for
story's
sure.
important to me. Like if you go after all those dragon tears, if you find all the cutscenes, that by itself is a great storyline. It tells you a bunch of history. But even the main storyline, as you complete the dungeons, and then as you get to that final, I can't wait for, especially Kyle, as you get there. I can't wait for you to get to that final stretch when you go back to the castle. It's so good.
Yeah, because I haven't even gotten to the dungeons. Like I
have you
literally
gotten the Master Sword at least yet? Have you done that part?
I did, and that segment was so cool. It was like,
So
oh
if you
my
like
god,
that,
this is
the main story and
yeah.
Dragon Tears has a lot more of that.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I am not in any way, shape, or form not convinced that it's an excellent game. And I
same
know
with Final Fantasy 16. It's at 9,
Yeah.
but that's not because I hate it. It's just because other things clicked with me better. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that I think we're kind of confirming that this is our top 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That conversation was actually really helpful, Dan. I don't think it's throwing a wrench in. That's actually helping us kind of piece things out here. So I think we've got Hogwarts, Hi-Fi Rush, and Starfield at 8, 9, and 10. Let's do a quick ranking of these. I don't mind doing the voting, but if you guys have a strong inkling of where these should land, feel free to let me know. I would have it Hi-Fi Rush, Hogwarts, Starfield. And not like by a lot. They're not separated by a ton, but I would go alphabetical, basically.
That's funny.
Dan, do you have a strong opinion on these? I know you spent some time with Starfield.
Yeah, because the only one that I just haven't played at all yet is Hogwarts.
Yep.
I played like an hour or two of Hi-Fi Rush. And then Starfield I've probably put like 40, 50 hours into.
Dang. Okay.
So I guess that one would be
do you like it? I can't remember. I know you enjoy it. But...
Yeah, I would say definitely. I mean, it's on my list. It is at the bottom. It is on my list. Okay. I think there was just like little things like some of the shooting felt a little off to me, but overall, I very much enjoyed it.
And Jeff, you've got Hogwarts, Hi-Fi Rush, Starfield?
That is correct. Yeah. Nailed it. Because Hogwarts is a top 5 game, so yeah, that makes sense.
And Kyle, you've got Starfield, Hi-Fi Rush, Hogwarts.
Yep.
Gosh. I know my kids
like
so well.
You do, but it's also like how different that is. It's so funny.
Oh no, I don't think I think the voting would essentially be tied with this.
Oh,
we could still do it because I don't think there's a good way to like debate this down to a shared ranking. I think we just have to do a quick voting on it. So I'm going to slide this over and just do. So I'm giving it 3, 2, and 1 points for my ranking. Jeff, you're giving Hogwarts number 1, right?
Yeah.
And then Hi-Fi, then Starfield.
Right.
Kyle, you're giving Starfield, then Hi-Fi, Hogwarts, and Dan, you're doing Starfield.
Yep.
Then Hi-Fi, right?
Yeah, by default, yeah. And then
actually does order it for us.
Oh, okay. So Hogwarts would be number 10 because it's ass.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
You sound
boycott.
like
hey, everyone, the boycott worked.
It's
number 10.
You sound like my team loses. I'm a Penn State fan, so like I've been living in like we're constantly behind Michigan, Ohio State, and same with 49ers. So like when my team loses, I'm like, oh, okay, we lost because we're the worst team in the NFL, I guess.
Yeah, we're literally the worst. That's great.
We're the worst. I guess we're the worst. All right, so that puts Hogwarts at 10 and Starfield at 9 and Hi-Fi Rush at 8. I think that's honestly any order of those I'm good with. You guys want to do the same thing with these 3, or is there one that you want to make a case for? Like, please put this one at 5. Like, does Alan Wake 2 or Octopath, do they need to like?
That's getting a little tougher now. That's fun.
Based on how we have them ranked, I feel like no one's got Alan Wake ranked higher than 5, and that's me. Mm-hmm. And 2 of you have the other 2 at like in your top 3. Dan has it in his top 3 for Octopath and Baldur's Gate also, right? Are they both in your top 3?
Baldur's Gate would be 4.
Yeah, so maybe this is the right order, actually. Maybe it's Baldur's Gate, Octopath.
Yeah, I have Baldur's Gate 5, Octopath 6.
Yeah, I think that's the right order based on how much we've played it. Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Because you've got Baldur's Gate at 2, right?
Yep.
And then Octopath 2 and Alan Wake 2. Of course, you both. I think you had Octopath higher than it.
Yeah.
For now. Okay. That might
Yeah,
change.
no, Octopath. I have Alan Wake higher than Octopath, but
Oh, you do?
again, as a joint list, this totally
This makes sense. Yeah.
All right, so that puts Baldur's Gate at the number 5 overall game of the year. Sorry, that's sacrilege for so many
Just
people.
a game that changed the entire genre, but no big deal. I guess we can just keep it.
I love the shrug comment. Just, it's
Not
fine.
a huge deal, I guess.
No big deal. No big deal.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
we've been
literally
wrong
changed
about-
the way that we look at companions in video games and
Right,
how sprawling choice-based video games work. But hey, whatever, it's 5. It's cool.
That's cool.
It doesn't
The
feel
actual
fine. My heart hurts now, but thanks.
definitive way of how to make decisions and do conversation-based dialogue in video games, but
Yeah, no, it only made rolling dice virtually the coolest it's ever been in the history of rolling dice. But that's fine. We can sit here and act like it's
No big
5.
deal. No big deal.
Hey, instead of
cares?
this, let's not even rank Baldur's Gate. Let's just say Baldur's Gate presents the best overall game of the year. Let's make it like
I
the
actually love that
sponsor.
idea.
Funny.
And just take it off
Larian
and we'll bring
presents.
over.
It's not on the
I
list.
don't
It's
know.
too good to be on a list. That's ridiculous. Let's make it the sponsor of the overall list, and it's going to recognize the lower tier games.
Sure.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's at number 5 after all that. Still, it's going to stay right there, I think. Okay. So
I think at least 3 and 4 feel pretty obvious.
what do you think they are?
Well, I think Jedi should be 4, just considering where we're at with Dan on that game.
Where was
And then
that
the rest
for
of
you,
us-
Tim? I forget. I'm sorry. Where'd you
Number
rank it?
2. This has been my number 1 game
Love it.
until I came back to Tears of the Kingdom and really put the time that game needed.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's my number 3. I love it. Yeah.
I love Jedi Survivor, and going back to revisit it reminded me not only did because I love the story so much that I remember, but the feeling of the lightsaber combat and switching stances immediately was like, oh yeah, no, this is one of the best things of the year.
Yeah.
For me.
I'm never gonna forget that story, dude. One of the best Star Wars stories, period.
So good.
Yeah.
Like, period.
And Kyle, I'm gonna assume you've got this
Like
top
2
5
or
somewhere.
3.
Where is it?
My list. I think I said Starfield was 4 earlier, but Jedi Survivor is 4 for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I flipped those. Sorry, Starfield's 5.
Dude, I
So you
flipped-
missed,
Jedi Survivor
it's
is
the
4.
star thing. It's a star problem. That's what.
Yeah,
it
it's a star. It's my dyslexic brain
Stars.
is what it is. Yeah, I look at star and I'm like, field.
Because the Xbot. Yeah, it's the
This time
Xbot.
it's wars. Yeah.
So yeah,
because,
maybe you're right,
because
Jeff.
of the
Maybe
snipers.
maybe Survivor, because Spider-Man. Well, let's get a feel for that one too, because I think those might be pretty close.
yeah.
Spider-Man is 6 for me.
I've got it at 3.
Hated it.
Hated it, obviously.
So Kyle hated it. It's my number 2.
And
Yeah.
Dan, where do you have that one?
It is also my number 2.
All right. Yeah. So,
uh,
all right. So let's just. How do you vote between just 2 with 4 people? What is there a good math way to do that? Someone listening is probably like, you guys are idiots. There's an easy way to do this. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I kind of want to rank.
You know what person? You're an idiot. All right, go to
I kind of
hell.
want to rank these 2 for 3 and 4, and these 2 for 1 and 2. I think that's kind of where we're gonna.
That's what makes sense to me in my head, based on our shared,
Yeah.
based on our own list. Yeah.
And by the way, push back if I'm like Dan, Kyle. Don't let me just steamroll. Like, is that not a good way to do it?
After hearing half of us hate Tears of the Kingdom, I don't know what's going on anymore. So I can't keep my head above water. Baldur's Gate's at number 5. I don't know why you want me to say anything right now.
Which by the way, Baldur's Gate 3 also made having sex very progressive and a very
you can bang a bear and a tentacle monster in this game.
Yeah.
But it's
Wow.
5, guys. It's the 5th one.
I didn't know about
Yeah.
the tentacle one, so I'm gonna pick that game back up immediately. So,
Hey, this is gonna
Yes.
sound like a really dumb reason for me to like a game a little less, real quick. But this is true. I'm not super into D&D. I just think this is a really cool, in-depth, mature RPG, and I admire it for all that it's doing. But the disappointment was palpable for my 12-year-old who can't play this game, and he is a D&D fanatic.
Oh,
But
yeah.
there's no option for him to experience this, at least in my
Yeah.
house. Sorry, we don't let our kids play rated R type stuff.
sure.
But there's just no option for him to do that. So like that, legitimately, it's hard for me to completely let go of that, because I know how sad he is, and how he knows he has all the D&D books and he's got everything. He's got all the
Wow.
stuff. Like he's even got his own
He would
adventure
know
that he's
every
written.
reference. Like no reference would be lost on him. Yeah.
I've mentioned
Yeah.
it to him, like, hey, the game just says something like this, and then he just for like 5 minutes straight could talk about that thing. Like, oh yeah, this is this, and it's connected to that, and like, so
It
that-
is a shame there isn't like a
is a disappointment.
censored like sort of mode or something, for
It,
like
Yeah.
the younger crowd,
you
Half
can
the
say-
game
you
would
can
be
make it go
edited out
from-
if that were the
Sure.
case.
True.
I think you can make it so like genitals are covered up or something, right? Isn't that an option? But other than that, it's like topless still happens. All the talk still happens. Anyway, whatever. That's a very personal. That's just a Tim thing. That's probably why it's hard for me to be as pumped for that game.
Yeah.
Because I want my kids to love the stuff that I love.
You know what? I like it so much that I'm taking this game off my top 10. Thank you. Piece of garbage.
Yeah. Larian Studios are the worst. They don't make great things.
Right.
We stand with Tim.
They don't listen to player feedback and make one of the best things ever. Okay.
Yeah, no.
No,
that's not what they did with this game. Not at all.
Now, I know I just separated these two. I just did like Spider-Man 2 and Jedi Survivor and then Final Fantasy and Tears of the Kingdom. If you're just listening, that's what I did. But we could rejoin them and do like a little vote to make it a little more diplomatic in that way.
We could do that.
Right to me, but if we want to do the vote, that's fine
let's
too.
Let's just do that for funsies. It won't take long anyway, so.
Wait, so it does seem right to you, Kyle? Because the reason I was doing it is because we've got number 1 for 2 people and number 1 for 2 people kind of facing.
Yeah, but once the numbers get involved, it might be a completely different thing. So
true,
it might.
Maybe the numbers are worth bringing in.
Hey, can
the numbers don't lie?
Can we do the vote and see the results? And then if I don't like them, then nix that idea?
No, because if I don't like them, I am gonna fight.
Yeah,
so,
I'm gonna say it's
rigged.
Let's
do it and let's hear me complain
I'm not
about
leaving
it. Let's
office. That's what's gonna happen. Yeah.
Sure.
Oh my gosh! I already think I know what's gonna happen. I
can't do too. It's gonna be like Spider-Man's number 1 or something, and I'm
know.
I'm gonna walk away from this podcast, even though it's kind of right, I guess. So
that's exactly what I was gonna say, Kyle. I think Spider-Man is probably
Spider-Man will win because the vote will be split.
It's the Guardians. It's the Guardians of the Galaxy.
We will. Yeah, right.
Superheroes win.
Podcast legitimacy for a second year.
Everybody that's called us Xbox or ponies are wrong. We're just Marvel cucks. That's all we are.
Yeah, all along. We're all Trojan horsed ourselves into being, Sony shills.
By the way, for those of you listening, like the reason we joke about that is because we have a Facebook group, which you're welcome to join. By the way, just you can request to join. But we get accused, especially a couple of us, of being Xbots because we try to go in with a fair, even mind about everything. Every piece of news that comes out that's good or bad about Sony.
How dare I own
Microsoft,
every console? I know.
We talk about it and we make fun of dumb things on every side of this. And yet, if it happens,
I feel like we're the South Park in the situation where it's like everybody's on the table. I'm gonna make fun of all of y'all, and I'm gonna celebrate y'all when it's right too. So,
but it confirms that the folks who come at us the hardest never listen to what we have to say in this environment or elsewhere because they are just convinced all our only opinions are in the comments as we're giving them a hard time about being.
Yeah.
Or if you're not even saying anything in the comments, just getting laugh reactions.
I know that all of you aren't listening to shows like this because you can't see how much we love all the stuff. But whatever.
So really, don't join our Facebook group because it's just cartoon nonsense. It's just cartoon.
Dan, you're right. Dan, you're right. Instead of that, guys, just go follow Dan on Dapper_Chocobo on Twitter.
It's way breezier over there. You're gonna love it.
Much more wholesome. And
thanks, guys.
Go to that instead. Okay, let's get back to this. You're right. I kind of don't want to let something that we all have at second or third place win by default because of the point total. I kind of want to be convinced that between the 4 of us, something should be at 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know if that's possible. I've got plenty of thoughts and I've talked a lot, but I'm curious, does someone want to make a really strong case that something in here needs to be 1,
Let me just see if I can read the room a little bit here. So like Final Fantasy 16 is 3 of ours, like number 2, 1, like 2, 1, right? 1 for Jeff.
1 for me.
Is it 1? Is it what is it for you, Dan?
That would be number 1, yes.
So number 2 for me. Oh, I'm sorry, number 3 for me. Excuse me. Sorry, I hate the game.
Hated it.
So like that's pretty crazy. That's pretty high,
Yes,
and then you have Legend of Zelda, which is 2 people's number 1. You know, like. So to me, that makes it feel like these 2 are like at the top, where all of us are like, yeah, Spider-Man's super good, and it might be at their number 2, number 3, number 6 for me because obviously I hate Sony because Phil Spencer's number 1. And Jedi Survivor again, like it's another one that's at like number 2, number 3. Like Spider-Man and Marvel sound exactly the same to me. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like where they should be next to each other in terms of like joint placement.
Yeah.
But I feel like there are like hardcore. This has got to be up there for Final Fantasy 16 and Tears of the Kingdom. I feel like there's like an enormous, intense fanfare for those games between us.
I think so. Yeah, because if we look at this list, if I look back at it, and Jedi Survivor or Spider-Man 2 finished at 4, I wouldn't be upset on a shared list with that happening.
On this year specifically.
For
any
us
other
as a
year,
group,
we might have some problems.
correct.
Yeah.
Based on these 4 games. I mean, to be fair, I'm also the one who wouldn't be mad if Final Fantasy 16 ended at number 4, but that's not fair because it's number 1 for 2 other people. So, in the same way, if Tears of the Kingdom was at number 4, I think I'd probably go to bed a little annoyed. And I think it's just because I love it so much.
I would understand it because the math makes sense, but
exactly,
you guys would be ripping my heart out for
that
sure.
That being said, if it finished at 2, because I've had so many of my favorite games finish at like 2 or 3, and I'm kind of okay with it because I kind of get, hey, we have to jostle and compromise a little bit. I think 2 would make a little more sense. At least you could convince me of that, even though I wouldn't like it, but I would get it. So I think you're right, Kyle. I think the passion we have for the games that are favorites of the year, that alone, put the math aside for a second, just kind of like ranking these with our heart. I think that alone means we have to pick between those 2 for 1 and 2. And I think
saying all that, I just want to remind that Baldur's Gate's at number 5, even though you just said all that.
I did.
You know, the game that came out at early access, by the way, right, for years and years, and they absorbed all of the feedback and they
a community-driven team who I'm not bringing this up over. It's a bit at this point. I am not championing for this game to be any higher than it needs to be. Like I just keep adding those games are behind us. Where 5 through 10's behind us. We're looking at 1 through 4 right now.
No, listen.
However, Baldur's Gate 3 is at 5. So.
The rest of the episode, Kyle, we're going to keep adding bullet points to why Baldur's Gate is being at number 5 is absurd. All right, we're going to keep doing it. The whole episode. The whole episode.
Now, I like the bit. I think we should keep doing it.
I love the bit too. Yeah.
I truly do. I think it's funny. But if you truly think that we should put it higher, I do want to hear you out.
I don't have room to like talk against these 4 games, which are like so celebrated between the 4 of us. Where Baldur's Gate 3 is just celebrated by like a couple of us, while a couple other people are kind of like tolerating it. I
thought you were gonna say, well, Baldur's Gate 3 is only celebrated by the entire industry and everyone who knows gaming. I thought you were.
It is, but you said that, not me, Tim. But it's at number 5, so
I mean, I could throw another wrench in the mix and say, let's get your Star Wars nerd nonsense out of. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, Dan, you'd be mean, and that's just
we can put.
I'm wearing my Wookiee shirt today. And you're saying
you murdered a Wookiee
right now.
You murdered a Wookiee, not
Jedi
me. All right.
Survivor at 5 because it's in another transport, and then we'll move it to like 3.
Yeah.
It's another transport that the SS plot, as we call it.
Whatever. We're celebrating EA over Larian Studios. It's okay, guys. Good job. No.
Right.
Good job, guys.
Right.
No, y'all
Excuse
are doing
me. Respawn. Okay. Respawn specifically.
Y'all are doing awesome. Good job, everybody.
We're celebrating metachlorians.
Oh my god.
over progress.
George Lucas is.
We're gonna pick just a Star Wars game over a game that revolutionized the entire genre of RPGs. But it's cool. I'm totally here.
But it's your number 2, though, right? It's cool. It's your number 2, though, right?
It's cool. It's totally fine.
Number 2. Not a big deal.
Oh my word. Now, Jedi Survivor, I think, has to go at 4, based on the fact that Dan he started it, and I think he's enjoying it so far. But just based on what we're all saying about it and the love that we've got for combination of Spider-Man 2, which I think is a solid 3rd place game in our particular rankings. Listen, if Derek were here, for example, our old buddy Derek, who was on the show for years and years,
he died.
He would be killing us over Baldur's Gate 3. Like he would be shocked.
All year, I didn't worry about the placement of this game because I was like, Derek's gonna fight really hard for this game, and this mofo bailed 2 months ago at the finish line.
Yeah. So this is your fault, Derek. Basically.
Derek.
This is your fault.
You got this at the 5th place, so thank you for leaving me out here like a kite dancing in a hurricane.
I think honestly, if
while we put Baldur's Gate 3 at 5 for the year. So.
I think if he were here, it'd actually be a 3-game conversation. Final Fantasy, Zelda, and Baldur's Gate battling for number 1. Spider-Man and Jedi would be at 4 and 5. That's what I think would happen if we had that one other, like, if we had one person even who said Baldur's Gate is my number 1.
What's cool because there's at least 1,000 people listening to this podcast who are agreeing and disagreeing with this placement. Yeah, all 1,000. Yeah.
And that is totally fine. Listen, when I put up a little clip, a YouTube short of our top,
so many clips up of Baldur's Gate
Oh yeah,
jokes
gonna be
from
great.
this episode.
A super
Yeah.
cut
gonna be
of
really
Baldur's Gate 3 being
But
up.
I put up our top 10 visuals of the year, and because we did it 15 and Starfield is listed, at that point in the short little video, got so many thumbs downs. As soon as we mentioned Starfield, thumbs down.
I love it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
I know. I agree with those people too who are like, what do you mean Starfield's the best? Because like if you think about the faces and certain things, you're like, how is that the best visual? I get it.
That's why you have to listen to the whole conversation.
Yeah,
to see
exactly. The
why
context
we
matters. Yeah.
But you're right. If you just see their faces as their dead eyes are looking at you,
Yeah,
okay.
the bad animation,
Yeah,
or the choppy animation. Yeah,
I get it.
It's kind of
So
silly.
funny.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay,
Good stuff.
let's stop dancing around it. Let's put Spider-Man 2 at number 3. I think that's where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Guys, Spider-Man 2 is officially better than the biggest game of our lifetime.
So
Um,
the game that got torn apart online. This
Yes.
is Spider-Man for being samey.
Yes.
Is going above the game that literally changed everything about it.
Correct.
Hey,
Correct.
Hey, guy, it's y'all's choice.
It
Kyle-
merged the tabletop gaming.
It's
and
definitely not
digital
my
gaming
choice, but it's y'all's
audiences.
for sure. It's y'all's
Yeah.
for sure.
Kyle, on top of
Okay.
that, Tears of the Kingdom is just Breath of the Wild 2.0. I mean, it's
Oh
just
yeah,
Breath
it's
of the
just
Wild 2.0.
DLC. It's just
Yeah, it's just DLC. It's just
Right,
DLC.
yeah. Well, we're gonna put that above. There we go. Let's do it. Let's load it up. Let's do it, guys. Let's put a
load it
nail in
up.
this coffin.
All right, guys. It's time to figure out, and I think if you want to make a case for where we have these on each other's list, that's totally fair to do that. But I think also it'd be good to make a case for why we think between Final Fantasy 16 and Zelda should be picked as the best game of the year. So feel free to make a case one way or the other. We haven't really talked much about Final Fantasy 16 and why it needs to be so high today. I know in previous episodes, it's up there with story and with visuals
Spoiler
and,
cast.
and combat. Excellent. But I am curious for this particular conversation as an overall game experience. If you want it at number 1, I'm curious to hear a case as to why Devil May Cry 6 should be the number 1 game.
Because of what you just said. You just said it. Devil May
Wow.
Cry 6.
You literally
Hey,
said the
you know
quiet
what?
part
Just
Devil
said
May
why.
Cry?
Yeah.
Devil May
If
Cry,
Devil May
pretty
Cry
awesome.
6 came out this year, it'd be a top 5 game, and we'd be fine.
Yeah, you're right. That is
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
Hey, good news, Kyle. Good news. It did come out this year.
No,
Oh,
we forgot
You
about
got
it.
us. Except this story's really good, and Devil May Cry is like it's
Except
good,
the
but
story
like, who
was
cares?
really
The
meaningful.
story makes no sense in Devil May Cry, and
No, it
that's okay.
Yeah, you're right. I
Listen,
still couldn't
Devil's
tell
Cry.
you what happened.
Or Devil May Cry series, not 6, but yeah,
But
the
I
whole series.
did like it. Anyway,
Nonsensical.
so Final Fantasy 16 should be number 1 because
Because I didn't play
All right.
Zelda. Dan, take it away.
Jeez.
I think we should put Final Fantasy 16 up there because as a pioneer of the RPG genre, like Final Fantasy is, it's so cool for them to let go of all of those elements, and then we celebrate it by putting it above the true RPG, Baldur's Gate 3. So
There you
There
go.
it is.
There you go.
Comes back around.
there it is.
Oh
There it
my
goes.
god.
Yeah, let's pick
Bit
a
will
linear
never
game
die.
where you walk down corridors and fight things.
Um,
At number 1, let's do it, guys.
All right. So Final Fantasy. All right. So Final Fantasy, right? Has been around for a long time. What, 30, 35 years?
Yeah.
For many iterations of these games, these mainline games, for a while, literally, basically since what, 6? They've been, each game is a different game. Which is funny when quote unquote fans of this series argue about Final Fantasy 16 not being a Final Fantasy game or other Final Fantasies not being. It's like, have you guys not played all these other games? You say you're a fan, but have you not played all these? Like,
Preach it.
well, they've all been different. Every single one. 6 is so different from 5 before that, which was medieval fantasy, and then 7 is pretty similar to 6, but still different, and 8. Okay, also the same. 9 back to medieval fantasy. 10, I don't even know how to describe 10.
But then again, all the mechanics are different. The variety of depth is different, So it's like if you have a favorite Final Fantasy game, most likely that's the only one that's like that, So to just, agree with what you're saying, they're all just so different in such huge ways.
Yep.
That's why that's one of the reasons why I love this series is that they take chances, they take risks, they try different things. There's different people in charge of each one that comes out, bringing their ideas and their personality to the project. And 16, they said, you know what? Yeah, we're gonna go even further into the action arena.
And they said this in the marketing.
It did.
You know, like no one was deceived.
Right.
So when people showed up and they were like, wait a minute, I don't understand why this is like this. You weren't paying attention in a way that I think you're blind
really
and
early.
deaf. You know,
they showed gameplay really early on, and you could see like, oh,
they
this is
hired the Devil May Cry combat director.
And he said, this is the best combat I've created yet, basically.
Yes, yeah.
He's not wrong.
You got hands-on with the game before it came out. If you know, like you knew what the game was going to be. But yeah, a lot of people were just like, oh my god, I can't believe it's not a.
And not to bring my biases about 13 and 15 into it, but I think even people that love like 15, for example, since it's the one right before that, I don't know. I think objectively you can definitely point out like there are flaws with the presentation of that story, whether you love the characters and moments in the game, there are flaws, right? The actual development of that game was messy. It was freaking 10 years. It was an entirely different game before it became 15. So from 15,
twice, right? Yeah, entire game twice. Yeah,
and then it became 15.
Exactly.
So going from 15 into 16, and just how confident that game feels. Like when you're playing that game in its entire, it feels like it has swagger. It's like, like. You might not like things about the game, but like it feels good to play. Like it's confident. It's telling the story. Here are the characters. They feel like actual people. Like the voice acting is amazing. Like
yes, it is.
The world's beautiful, and there is a concrete story there that is, in my opinion, makes complete sense. You can dig deeper if you want, and there's a system for that, which is awesome. And it needs to be an all RPG.
The world lore stuff is tops.
Incredibly memorable boss fights.
You have the boss fights are so epic, but like you have the active time lore, which is in game.
That's what I meant.
Pause it at any second. But then you have the lore that you can go talk to somebody at your like base.
Yeah.
And like she can explain where every character is, and you can like switch like missions. Like where were we in the last mission? What was my relationship to these people compared to what it is now? And I think they even added more depth to that in the in a recent, like in an update shortly after launch. They added like different options and stuff like that in there. That's just so like,
and that's super cool to like
look
at an area that you just left like chaos in your wake and just go, hey, that entire area is destabilized now, because of the things that I did there.
It's completely dark on the map now.
It's super cool.
Like you said, the boss fights a second. Like I mean, legit, like there's a boss fight. I don't know how spoilery or not spoilery we want to be with these, but
it's super old.
They're 2024 so now, it's a new year.
Hey, so skip ahead a little bit if you're listening or watching and don't want to hear anything about boss fights. Go ahead.
But basically, there's the you're fighting the icons.
As icons.
Yes, as icons, and there's a particular one involving Bahamut, which is like the most ridiculous spectacle I think I've ever seen in a boss fight related in my life. Like, I mean, I was speechless while I was playing it. I was like,
for whatever reason, I didn't think it was going to deliver on that, even though that's kind of what Devil May Cry does, or Bayonetta for that matter, and stuff like that. It just takes a lot of spectacle and ridiculousness and turns it into an action sequence. Mm-hmm. So when it showed up, like, it was just, I don't know, it felt right and it felt necessary, and I just loved having my skirt blown up by that stuff. So.
Oh yeah, my skirt was off at that point. It was just.
Because
the Titan fight is before that, and that fight was insane.
The fight's incredible. Yeah, you're running up his arm and so. Oh my God, just absolutely incredible.
Ridiculous. It's so cool.
It really is.
And Zura's wrath levels of ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Oh my. Yes, absolutely. And then the music is obviously, it's Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it's okay. It's only
it's fine.
Master of the genre. No big deal.
Yeah.
There's not like a whole game about that music at all.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, and the performances are across the board. I mean, I've said even the NPCs, I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember an NPC where I was like, that voice acting's kind of bad. Like, even the NPCs, I'm like, these all sound great. Like, everyone that they have as these NPCs sound great. And then obviously main characters and so on and so forth.
By the way, I'm still very slowly working my way through Echoes of the Fallen, which is literally like a 2 or 3 hour DLC. I could have it beaten one sitting. But I don't want the game to end. I don't want to, so. But every time I have this experience, because I'm in the middle of Prince of Persia, that's my main game right now, Lost Crown, where I boot up Final Fantasy 16, and it's like, did the game always look this good? Like, I don't. I have my mind blown over and over again every single time I boot up the game.
It did. It's beautiful.
It's crazy how good it looks.
Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
14.
It's just, I mean, obviously, again, I mean, everyone knows I love Final Fantasy, but I just think this one is especially special just because of like, yeah, just the kind of previous years.
Course correction.
Yeah, the course correction. The previous years of Square. Again, plenty of people love 15 and 13, and you know, I'm not trying to like specifically bring that in here. I'm just trying to be objective. Like they're definitely in the fan base, like, yeah, but like there's some stuff with those. And then like, I don't know. I just feel like this one, there's just more confidence, there's more consistency and quality, in like pretty much every aspect.
I love the
like
confidence thing too. That's a good description.
I like that you mentioned the confidence too, because that was something I would not have been able to put my finger on, having not been that explored in the Final Fantasy games. Yeah. But as a gamer, I could feel that confidence through the screen. Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, the last handful of Final Fantasies, like he was saying, like 15 and 13 are like known to have problematic stories or unmemorable stories or weird stories or whatever, and for them to focus so hard on it without all this extracurricular watching homework, you know, anime and movies and stuff like that, which can be fun, you know, don't get me wrong, but like they were just like, nope, this is the story. It's right here. All right here for you. You know, they don't feel like afterthoughts to fill in like plot holes that they accidentally made like in the game or anything like that. Like 15, Kingsglaive is kind of like that. Like without watching Kingsglaive, like a lot of things in like the main game that kind of don't make sense, you know.
Right.
So like it's just, you know, like there's none of that here. You know, that's the confidence I think Dan is speaking of, or at least the confidence of what it means to me, at least.
Because that's what USP basically was saying prior to that. They're like, listen, like he had straight up been like, we know how you guys feel about some previous stuff. So we're listening and we hear you and we're gonna
blocked you. We blocked you on social media.
Yes,
right.
We listen, we hear you, and you're done.
right. And we'll never hear you again. That was it.
But I think that's cool that they actually cared and they listened.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. That shows too. Because I did have at least that experience of going from 15 to 16. I put like 13 hours in the 15. Didn't really care for it. I really tried. I really, really did. And then to go to 16 as a main line, because I'm not really counting 7 Remake because it feels like its own beast at this point. But like to go from 15 to 16 is just such a jump to me. It's such a huge jump. Yeah. And it's a character action game. Like, I mean, that on top of the quality jump in the story and how they're laying out the world and stuff like that.
Yeah,
God, that
for
action
me,
is just so good.
You brought up the character action piece of it. You know, for me to see a game of that genre get this high of a budget is like, that's top tier stuff for me. You know, because that is like my favorite. It's one of my favorite genres. You know, so to see it get the a Square pillar IP budget. You know, like that's where you don't get a lot of that type of stuff. You know, it's like that. It's like this and God of War. Like those are like.
I was literally about to say, I could swear if you've listened to the show as long as I've been on it, God bless you first off. But second, if you've heard any of the Game of the Year discussions before, God of War Ragnarok was my favorite game of last year. For similar reasons that Zelda is not in conversation for my 10. And Elden Ring was not my conversation for my 10 last year. Like, it's just those games are too. It's almost like they're too free. Hold my hand a little bit. But
hold my hand.
I'm so biased to apparently character action games. Like, I just love when they get the combat system completely right, on top of the story being
and they give you
at times super deep. The lore is very carefully constructed and all that stuff. Like,
hey, when are you playing Nier, Jeff?
I really need to get on that, man.
Nier Automata, please.
Story,
please
combat. Get to it.
Nier Automata.
I got like 5 hours into Automata, and like there was a part where it was kind of like an open like green field or whatever, and I couldn't figure out where to go. So I said, you know what? I got other new games to play.
That game can be a little like you're talking about that like
not
hold my hand a little bit. That game can be a little off the rails for sure.
I definitely had to
not in a big way like Zelda, but like I get what you're saying for sure.
Yeah, I could always circle back to it. I mean,
talk about a game
this year's going to be dead, right?
Built. Like, right? They were confident that their game is so good. You're going to want to play through that storyline 3 different times from a couple.
And you kind of have to understand.
You kind of do.
So.
Literally.
But you don't care either because it's kind of short.
Actually great.
And,
the way they do.
Yeah, I was
going
to say,
change the characters.
Total, it's still not like 100 hours. It's like
No, it's still like under 40, and like you're playing it 3 completely different games, pretty much.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
I've heard that. Yeah.
And there's 13 endings, but
and you're
3
just
prime
talking about Automata, not Replicant Remake or Replicant.
No, I mean you could hear me talk all day about Replicant, but it's not like the bell of the ball like Automata is. You know?
Gotcha.
Automata is so good.
But yeah, Remnant, Replicant.
But I did.
Awesome,
it did. Final Fantasy did like Kyle says, blew my skirt up so dirtily and pleasantly in a way that I was like, you know what? I'm going to try Devil May Cry 5. That is a game that I'll mention later. So, I mean, the fact that the combat was that good that I was like, I got to see what this combat director is all about.
Yeah.
That I had to circle back and play that game.
Great game.
Wow, dude.
Great game. There's a weapon you get towards the second half of that game. I think it might be in the third act that you get. I don't even want to say the character or the weapon, just because it's so fun when both of those things happen.
Oh, sure.
But there's a weapon. You're like, that is a weapon, and that has its own move set. It's so amazing. It's really.
They kind of did that a little bit. Not really though. It didn't really change your action so much, but the final icon ability that you get.
Yeah.
And like how you change weapons, and then you can up your stats on it, and if you max it out, then you unload like this freaking insane special attack on everybody, especially a boss that like knocks down their health bar by a lot. That's what that sounds like to me. Similar, so I can see why they chose that combat director.
Yeah, switching the icons and the way you can level them up and do all these special moves with them and kind of unleash those, so satisfying.
Oh my gosh.
In Final Fantasy 16, they did such a good job. That's why we were gushing about it with Best Combat. I think it didn't win, but it was in the top 3, and like we loved the combat for that game, of course. It's amazing. So yeah, absolutely love it. Great game. And then Tears of the Kingdom we've talked about already. We don't have to go into as deep that we just did with Final Fantasy, but a lot of the stuff Dan just said, and that he holds a special place in his heart for Final Fantasy, I feel that exact same thing. Of course, in my mind, I feel like it's stronger, but it's definitely not. Like it's equal. As a fan of Zelda, since I could hold a controller, since I played the first one on the NES, I never actually finished the NES one because my cousins had an NES.
Fake fan.
Yeah, totally fake fan.
Also, very hard game. Very hard game.
It is hard, but it wasn't until Link to the Past when my brother and I got our Super Nintendo. And ever since I played Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo, I think it was like in 4th grade or something when I played that, or 5th grade, I was hooked. Every Zelda game that's come out since then, even the ones that I don't think are quite as good as others, dude, they're just my favorite. I think Skyward Sword's the only exception.
I've tried to play that game 3 times now, and I'm like,
I'm just not interested in. I think the decision to do waggle controls was a mistake for me personally. Maybe some people think it was great. It's what I don't think.
I think it was cool, but like not. Obviously, I didn't. Obviously, I'm saying what I'm saying, so not cool enough. And then when they brought it to controller, I'm still like, yeah, it's not good enough. This is so. A lot
of the things that hit in Final Fantasy 16 are not only because the production values and the love and care put into it is amazing. If it were a brand new IP, you had to still be like, wow, the production value and love and care in this world is amazing. But a lot of what I think makes Dan and other Final Fantasy fans love it as much as they do is the Final Fantasy touches that make sure that it feels and has the heart of a Final Fantasy game, like the good Final Fantasy games, the best Final Fantasy games. And I picked up on that during the demo, and as we all did, we were just like, oh, this is something special. So I totally get that. I feel like Tears of the Kingdom does the same thing with Zelda. I think it hits on the things that make Zelda special. It makes the acquisition of the Master Sword one of the, and I already thought I thought Ocarina of Time was the best version of getting the Master Sword.
Yeah.
I now think this might be my favorite way of getting the Master Sword. It's so good. This version of Ganon is actually terrifying, and his motivation actually makes sense compared to other times. Sometimes the story in Zelda is a little Saturday morning cartoon of like, he's just evil and you need to stop him. Just stop him.
He is evil, like that, like incarnate.
He needs to stop
that's what he is.
This time it's much different, and so I think the story hit a lot better. Also, I think the performances in Zelda are good. I know it's easy to shrug them off, but they did a really good job with the cutscenes and the characters. I think they did an excellent job with the performances.
The cutscenes in Breath of the Wild were fantastic, and obviously there's more here. Clearly,
there's more. Yep.
The story was so focused, like from the very first cutscene of Zelda, in a way that like every Zelda's got kind of a beginning cutscene, but this one just kind of felt like, hey, no, we're telling a story here, and like strap in. It's going to be something that's going to be present at least.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild is more about the exploration uncovered why you woke up in the cave and what's going on. Tears of the Kingdom introduces you right away. Right away, you're already kind of strong, and you're there with Zelda, and then things go horribly wrong. You awaken Ganon in your effort to do whatever it is you're trying to do. I won't say too much, but things go horribly, and then that's why the Master Sword gets damaged the way that it does. It just introduces the whole thing in a brand new, interesting way. But I loved the variety of combat. similar to Final Fantasy's combat in this way. You can play it repetitively and then criticize it for being repetitive.
Sure.
So I've tried to check myself on that. I can't sit here and say that Final Fantasy 16's combat is repetitive. There were times I chose to play it more repetitively just because it was comfortable, and I just kind of knew.
Yeah, sometimes you get comfortable with like some main,
literally,
like
that's
big
how I play
damaging
all of those
moves.
games. I'll be
But
honest.
when I
literally
chose,
any of these games can be repetitive.
you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
All
When I-
games are inherently built on loops. Every game on Earth is repetitive.
But when I
you know,
actively
so-
went into the upgrade screen and picked some different icon combos, I was like, okay, frick, this is so good. Like the way you can chain different moves together from these different icons,
Yeah.
so satisfying. And it's the same thing with Zelda. When you use the abilities and the environment, even when you use the things that are available to you, even when you use rewind, it's a feature I never would have thought to use in combat.
Mhm.
But I started to use it every once in a while in combat. Everything from throwing a rock back at the head of an enemy to using your lift, your God Hand mode to spin something and then drop it and then hit rewind and it'll spin. If you put spikes or fire or whatever on it, it's going to hit the enemy as many times as you've spun it around. Like little things like that are just like, this is genius. It's the kind of thing where like I've never fancied myself a big world builder. Like when people make a game where it's like, hey, you can do RPG Maker or Minecraft and build whatever you want. That's not usually appealing to me. But if you give me really cool tools and a very satisfying way to use them in the world, I think that's why I like Valheim so much. I'm not creating that world. I'm not designing the trees and the mountains, but you gave me a system where things snap together really easily and I can build something cool with very little effort.
A good tutorial goes a long way, which I feel like this game has, you know.
The game's very satisfying feeling. Zelda does the same thing as you snip things together and you have that weird green glue that's holding stuff together and then you're like, oh, I could do this. And then you get the quick rebuild feature, which changes the entire experience. I don't know, man. There's something about this one that I just think it's easy to write this one off, just like a lot of the games on our list, because it is a successor to a beloved game. You know, I get it. And some of the design styles, of course, are very similar. Of course they are. Like it's meant to be a direct sequel. Like this game, the story picks up right as you're finishing Breath of the Wild, essentially. Not right as you're finishing, but you know, far after it.
I actually will say the opposite of what all these whiny people talk about, how the game's just copy and paste and how that's a detriment. I think it's literally the opposite. Because if you played the first one, it's like it feels like you're coming home, but then suddenly they added like 2 massive sections to your home and you're like, oh, well, let me go explore these 2 amazing new sections in my home and look at all this cool shit that's in these 2 new sections of my home.
I don't know if by tripling the amount of like land space or you know is copy and pasting. If you're doubling or tripling your amount of space to, I feel like there might be familiar places also with lots of new stuff, and also those familiar places they did a really good job of making feel strange again.
They did a better job with the quest, and I don't think they got enough credit for this.
I think the side quests are so amazing in this game.
The side quests are fantastic, and they're so worth pursuing. And they did a good job of giving you easy ways to track them and to actually.
Some of my favorite quests all year were like helping the band get together and like carting them up to the ferries
and finding the weird
the
fairy who comes out and flirts with you. Yeah.
You know, and they play a cool song, and every mission you add one more person to the band. You know, and just figuring out ways to get them up or over or across or under things.
Dude, the times that I've put them onto some weird like powered cart and like driven up a mountain, I'm like, hold on, everybody.
Yeah, you know right. We're gonna get there, buddy.
Yeah. So listen, I can't really say that one game is better than the other as we're talking about these two, because I truly do love the Final Fantasy series, not to the degree that Dan does. I haven't played all of them. I did like 15, I think maybe more than Dan did, but it's not like my favorite or anything.
Sure.
13, I couldn't get past the first few hours.
A lot of people could.
But I know. But 16 did
Slam, got him.
16 did for me what like 10 and 9 and some of these others did. It made me care about characters in the world instantly, and it gave me a set of systems that I understood and I could use. And I feel like that alone is, to me, it's nice to see the single player Final Fantasy worlds kind of come back to like top of their game. And it's been a while. And I can't say the same about Zelda. I feel like Zelda with Breath of the Wild kind of got back to the top of the game. Not that Skyward Sword was bad, but I thought it was a nice return to form of like, man, Nintendo's still got those creative juices. They can surprise you. And so that was great.
And look no further than the Ripples that Breath of the Wild had in the whole industry. Much like our 5th place game, Baldur's Gate 3, the amount of ripples that it had despite being at 5th place. Breath of the Wild had similar ripples where everybody copied that going forward. The climbing mechanics, the gliding mechanics. You
can't create a ripple without being in the middle of the water, much like Baldur's Gate 3.
That's why it's there. It's not because it's only
create
there
a ripple
because
for the rest of the
10.
10.
It's not there because it deserves it.
Everybody, we ranked Baldur's Gate 3 in the 5th place because it has the most effect on all the games around it. We wanted to put it in the center,
exactly,
so it could evenly spread out its influence across the list.
Yeah, there's a narrative.
You know what we did with Baldur's Gate? We put it down by the river, is what we did.
Yeah, down by the river. Yeah.
Down by the river.
Gosh. All right, listen, I love gushing about these two games. They're both truly, truly excellent. I don't currently have a strong leaning how we should rank it. I kind of don't care. They could be a tie. I don't really care.
I say we just do the numbers. I say we just do the vote.
They're both number 1.
Well, it's going to be tied.
I think we know how the vote would go. Yeah.
I can already tell you it's going to be 6-6. I think is how the numbers would turn out, something like that. So, and I don't necessarily want OpenCritic to decide this for us either. So I think we kind of have to resort to where do they place on our list, and the only fair thing to do in that case is Zelda's not on Jeff's list because he didn't play it. Like that's literally what it comes down to.
The opening segment. And then, I don't know, I got distracted with something else. I allowed myself to get distracted with something else, basically.
Which is the perfect way to play that, to be honest, is to just let yourself just explore naturally, That's the best way to play it, I think. But
I will say, since I haven't, gotten to say like my piece on Zelda, that it's definitely the most magical game I think I've played in a long time, even more so than Larry and our 5th place, Baldur's Gate game, which definitely deserves to be higher. But like more magical than that even, and I know that for a lot of people that sounds crazy, because of the people who think that it's very similar, the copy and paste, yada yada, it's just a sequel. But I just don't remember ever being so enthralled with getting over that next. So like I'm talking maybe the best exploration in any video game ever, in my opinion. Maybe.
100% agree.
And the fact that it is, there's something about it that like, hey, I kind of know this area because we played it in the last game. And the excitement of getting there to see how it changed became a driving factor of why I was exploring in certain directions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, I need to go, let me go check up on that town that I did this one thing in last game. Oh, now there's this whole mayor race going on in this town and it's really heated, and like just engaging with that and getting that story is just, it's goofy and silly and fun.
All of this sounds like the exploration part sounds like Red Dead 2. Like
it's
a lot of the same map.
It can be the same in terms of like running into like a small little story event and kind of following and pulling on the thread there, and just
what the hell is this about? Yeah, exactly.
Right, and you'll experience things outside of town, and you'll kind of follow a quest line in the town, and just the way that the game naturally guides you into being like, hey, over here we've got something here, and just the design of like making sure that that something is over there is perfect. It's like it's a perfect video game to me. And I don't know if like being a Zelda fan your whole life is like, I don't think that's an ingredient. You know what I mean? Like, now not liking these types of games are totally fine. Like, hey, I just don't like these types of games. That's why you don't like it. But I don't know if it's true that like you have to be a Zelda fan to like this game. I think that's a crazy thing to say.
You don't even have to play Breath of the Wild beforehand. Like it makes sense from start to finish. Like, okay, the hero is there with the princess in a cave. And bad guy came to life. Okay, like you. Yeah, I don't need to play the others ahead of time.
I think it's meanly weaponized to say you have to have nostalgia to like this game. I think it's just kind of a mean, incorrect thing to say. So
kind of like I think it'd be the same thing to say about Final Fantasy 16. You can't say that game doesn't deliver just because you didn't get some of the nods to Final Fantasy stuff.
Yeah, I don't think it relies on you being a Final Fantasy fan.
Not at all.
You not growing up with Final Fantasy is not a factor of how much you like Final Fantasy 16. That is the exact same thing with Zelda. I mean, they're both video games.
I think it's a factor. I think we're underselling. I really do.
Let's hear it.
I mean, I feel like if I grew up with Zelda, I would definitely be responding a little more positively.
You didn't grow up with Final Fantasy, and you like Final Fantasy 16.
It's different, though. This, like Dan said, this is a totally different experience for a Final Fantasy game. Like in terms of like the action.
This is a totally different experience for a Zelda
This is different for Zelda. Yeah, the comparison I was making
was quite different.
The comparison I was making was at the heart of, hey, this feels like a Final Fantasy. Same way it feels confident. it feels like a Zelda, but it's totally different. It feels like Final Fantasy, but it's totally different. Like that's I was trying to make that comparison that both of them captured the heart of their series. But dude, like this is nothing like playing Ocarina of Time or some of those others.
Yeah,
Like
they're
the only thing
completely
that's similar is
different video
the
games.
Z targeting is like that's pretty much the only similarity.
There's always been like a general like kind of not, I don't know if hand holding is the right term, but like a structure. There's like a pretty guided structure to Zelda games, right? Like
Yeah,
I mean,
that
like
Breath of the
you can
Wild
kind of
exploded. They were like, we're not doing that at all anymore, which actually made a lot of Zelda fans not fans of Breath of the Wild.
sure.
So people who were fans of Zelda, some of them didn't follow the trends of how the franchise grew. So
they didn't. Some people were like saying the same exact thing
I don't know.
about Tears
I just
of the
think
Kingdom. They were like,
I think it's
I
extremely...
love Zelda, but like I can't get into this new format or whatever. And
I just think it's like extremely reductive to say that you have to have nostalgia for the series to like it. I think that's just like, I think a good game is just a good game sometimes. And like if a game is good enough and it captures you in a way that you like the structure or the design or anything like that, you can become a fan, and it doesn't matter that if you're a fan or not before. You know, that's how series and franchises grow, by getting new fans with every entry. You know, and that goes for all video games. You know, not just Zelda.
It could help in a case where you're trying to figure out a tiebreaker if you were trying to rank a game. Maybe you've got a little more love for the history of a certain series. I could see it on a personal level being a tiebreaker.
Yes, I think that. Yeah, I think that like obviously for your personal feelings,
like the sound of the
it can be a very big factor of how you rank something or feel about something. Yeah, absolutely. Nostalgia is powerful in that way, and making you love something maybe a little more because of the length of that love or the passion of that love. So
it can
kind
also
of
be
like
dangerous.
The depth of the world and the lore and the way that the Baldur's Gate 3 captured the D&D. I'm just kidding. I'm trying to bring it back in.
Yeah, it's number 5. Yeah. I'm gonna leave it in the rearview mirror.
But it can be dangerous though, because you know, as much as I love Final Fantasy, and I don't like to boil things down into the tribalism and all that, but Final Fantasy fans can be super annoying because it really is like, well, this one's my favorite, so yours is stupid, and you're stupid because blah blah blah. So it's like, guys, like, shut up, like, for the love of God.
First of all, good conversation.
Some of that has to exist with Zelda, like Kyle was saying, with some gamers, Zelda fans dropping off when they expanded exploration.
Too much changed,
that they were like, I'm just going to go play Ocarina of Time.
Which Final Fantasy has that as well. You know, we just talked about that. People don't like Final Fantasy 16 because it doesn't have some of these, like, what they think are tenets of the series, you know? So people drop off, or you get these, like, really weird pushbacks about it being a hallway simulator and stuff like that. Not unlike our 5th place Baldur's Gate 3 or 5, 3 in our 5th place that is very open and not a hallway at all. So
no, there was certainly a lot of people with Breath of the Wild, especially less so with Tears of the Kingdom, because they knew what to expect.
They already dropped off by that point. Yeah,
Breath of the Wild, there's a lot of people who were like, this is not my Zelda. Like, there's no dungeons. Like the way I'm used, like, totally. Yeah. And same thing with Final Fantasy 16. I think it happened some with 15, but because there was still a lot of RPG elements and some feeling of strategy to it, whereas 16
exploration,
a little more exploration. 16 has a lot more just like, hey, hit the button fast and activate your special moves. It's a lot less like, what can you equip and what are you leveling?
It's like a game that trimmed all the fat off of,
and
you know,
people are like, well, that's
not
my Final Fantasy. That's not turn-based, or at least like super in-depth RPG elements. I'm like, hey, that's fair that you want that, and that's a criticism for you, but it's still an excellent game. It's not trying to be that.
Hey, guess what? If you're a real Final Fantasy fan, you know it's probably the most Final Fantasy since 9, because literally the core of Final Fantasy 16 is about crystals. And guess what? The first Final Fantasy game is about fucking crystals. If we're gonna boil it down to just like, well, is, you know, this bullet point item, it's like, so y'all need to educate yourself.
It's the first time you can kill a chocobo, I believe, in the whole series. Correct?
I don't want to talk about that.
Maybe I don't know.
I might have done it every single time I saw them. I don't know.
I think Tears of the Kingdom ended up selling like 48 million copies. I think Tears of the Kingdom ended up selling like 48 million copies, you know? Something around that number, you know? There weren't 48 million Zelda fans whenever the first Zelda came out, you know?
Correct.
People jumped on board at different points, you know, during the series, you know? And that's just the case with all games, you know what I mean? I bet you this was many people's first Final Fantasy, you know? I bet you this was a lot of people's first Diablo this year. I bet you this was a lot of people's first, you know, like, you know, so it's like people jump on board all the time. Nostalgia is not a factor other than what you personally feel about it, you know?
Hey, if it was their first Alan Wake, I feel bad. They need to play all that stuff to understand.
If it's just your first Alan Wake, like there's the exception to the rule. You know what I mean? Like we'll talk about a game that's not nice, to people who haven't played before. All the other games we've been talking about. It's like, hey, come on, we're kind of starting over a little bit. Alan Wake's like, buckle up. You have about 40 hours of content you should have experienced already.
We're gonna say a lot of things.
Called a clicker.
The developer said leading up to release, like, oh, we're not, Saga's there to introduce you to all this stuff and like to re-explain what happened. And I'm like, I feel like you're leaving out details though. Like, because everybody that played the first game knew Nightingale, and I'm like, the hell is this? Like, what is this about?
Like that guy was a really important guy last game. They just killed him off at the beginning of this game, Yeah.
And he was super naked right at the beginning.
He was so naked. I've never seen so much
dong.
So
much dong.
My
wife was
happening.
like, why is there so much dong? Like,
and then he's laying there dead, still showing the dong. Like
dead dong. Dong.
Yeah.
And
he's actually the first
what also has dong, Tim, is the game that's in 5th place, Baldur's Gate 3.
It does.
Lots of dong.
Yeah, lots of dong.
Good job,
Yeah.
That's actually one of our closing top 10 lists we'll make together is best video game.
dongs.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. We'll get there. There's only 2 games to choose from, I think, this year.
I don't know. When Zelda drops Trow in this game, it's pretty something.
16 has some almost dong shots. So I mean, some of
they got some male pelvis. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's some moments where it's
got some
like,
B pelvis.
How are they not? How is it not showing up? Like, is it?
Yeah.
How's it tucked?
It's
totally bald down there. How is this happening?
I got one of those actor socks on for sure.
All right, guys. Here's how I believe we are landing. Final Fantasy 16 is the current gen podcast game of the year, followed very closely, as you just heard, with our, I thought, pretty fun and I thought very positive celebrations of both these games. Zelda's right behind it.
Zelda sucks.
2.
Zelda sucks.
And it sucks. But it doesn't suck as much as the best game of the year, Baldur's Gate 3, at number 5.
Yeah.
So okay, so
this
I
is
think I'm framing
freaking rodeo. Man.
I think I'm framing some of my Zelda, what I was saying about Zelda, incorrectly. So the Zelda combat, in terms of like how difficult some of the encounters can be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the weapons, I know there's like, whatever. I know this is like a point of contention for some people that crap on the Zelda games, but like the weapons breaking and stuff, that carries across the series, right? So like,
this is new to Breath of the Wild. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Skyward Sword had some kind of degradation mechanics, but like you would just fix that specific sword, and it was pretty easy. This was all about like you're gonna lose everything you have constantly, and you're constantly gonna be
other than the Master Sword, which just loses power and then recharges after a while.
And the difficulty of enemies and stuff like that, I would also say is new to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah. The old games are for kids, like they're meant to be kind of easy. Not like super simple. There are still hard boss fights, but like Zelda took a lot from Dark Souls, you know what I mean? As Dark Souls took a lot from Zelda, where it's like, hey, like parrying and dodging and location and watching for it's all very important.
So I thought for some reason my dumb, uneducated Zelda brain, which I don't have a Zelda brain, obviously. I was like, oh, that's been a staple of the series. That's why other people are
almost nothing
so
about
easily.
Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is a staple of the series. At all. Completely.
Other than other than Link not talking.
Yeah. Other than Link not talking, yeah, absolutely.
But he does go, ah!
Yeah. And Chocobos being really mean. That's about like those are the 2 things that are consistent.
that carry across.
Or I'm sorry, Cuckoos. Whatever they're called in Zelda. Yeah.
Cuckoos. That's the sound.
Cuckoos.
Those chickens don't mess around. Do not hit them. I learned that the hard way. I think the first time I learned that was actually in Link's Awakening, the Game Boy game, is when I realized, like, oh, the chickens will get you.
They will.
By the way, Link's Awakening, Game Boy game, what is it, 94 or whatever year that game came out? And I forget what year that came out. But in that game, my brother and I tried forever. We finally figured out you could steal from the shop owner. So he stole this shovel that we couldn't afford, which is a pretty important way to progress the game. You go back in that shop and he will kill you. Like your heart's go to 0 and you have to you reset. Yeah. And then for the rest of the game, he'll let you shop, but he calls you thief, and everyone in town calls you thief in all caps for the rest of the game. Not Link anymore. You're just thief. So I was like, dude, they thought about that, and it's like the core heart of a gamer's going to try to do this, so let's let them do it and have this play out this way. Like that's always been
consequences or long lasting kind of
some kind of effect of what you just did. So. Yeah, guys, this is, I think, our top 10, and we're celebrating these games. We're not saying that you have to feel this way about
Are
them.
we
It's just
really celebrating Baldur's Gate 3 at,
We're not, though.
at 5? You know, is that really a celebration?
not a celebration. It should be
I'll
off
be
the
honest.
list.
I'll be honest. If Derek were here, Final Fantasy 16 would probably still be number 1. Or Zelda. I mean, Zelda would actually probably overtake it. But I still think Baldur's Gate 3 would be like 3.
I think those 3 are like his top 3. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I think Baldur's Gate 3 is number 1, and then it's either Zelda or Final. So yeah, you're right. It'd be a similar conversation.
Yeah,
with
I don't think
Baldur's
Baldur's Gate 3 would have been a 1 lock if Derek.
I think it would have been 3. I think that's
it would have
been
been higher, higher than 5, but
yeah. If we, Kyle, for real, would you, if we moved it, we're not gonna, this is locked in, but if we did move it, what would you put below it? Spider-Man 2 goes below it based on
I would put Star Wars and Spider-Man below it, but and Final Fantasy for that matter, but yeah, whatever, it doesn't really matter. I think representation wise, we're talking about games that made us like stand up and cheer. The chat was ablaze with Final Fantasy 16. The chat was ablaze for most of us for Tears of the Kingdom. The chat was ablaze for Spider-Man. The chat was ablaze for Jedi Survivor. Baldur's Gate 3, got some love, but like my love for that happened outside of that chat and stuff like that. Whereas these 4 that ended up being our 4, we all kind of celebrated in and really.
Octopath
I didn't even know Dan was 110 hours into Baldur's Gate 3 until last week. You know what I mean?
We spent like 3 full episodes.
I had no idea. We weren't sharing, stories about Baldur's Gate. You brought it up a couple times, Tim. I brought it up. Hey, I'm in the, the cave right now. It's kind of cool. But these top 4 that we chose were the ones that we just wouldn't shut up about week on week.
Yeah.
So, I don't think this list was wrong. So, like, you asking me, like, hey, what are we going to bump, yada, yada. That's a totally
I was just curious. I know,
that's like, you're just asking me what my list is, but, like, you're talking about celebrating the 4 of us enjoying video games. We picked the right 4, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it'd be funny to do it based on how much we talked about stuff. I feel like Hogwarts might move up 1 or 2. Octopath Traveler would definitely move up based on. We spent 3 full episodes on that stupid game.
I felt like 2 full months in chat talking about Octopath Traveler.
Just Octopath Traveler 2, and then that made me go back.
That game over delivered for sure. Like it should not have been as good as it was.
Yeah.
I went back and played through. I finished my playthrough of the first one. So we were talking about all Octopath for like 6 weeks.
I feel like that matters. That's a currency, man. Like it's what are we celebrating together? What are the things that we're like bouncing off each other in excitement? Yada yada.
Yeah, I agree. So our top 10, starting at number 10, working our way up to number 1. Games of 2023. Hogwarts Legacy at number 10, Starfield at 9, Hi-Fi Rush at 8, Alan Wake 2 at 7, Octopath Traveler 2 at 6, Baldur's Gate 3 at 5, Star Wars Jedi Survivor at 4, Marvel Spider-Man 2 at 3, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom at 2, and Final Fantasy 16 at number 1. What a good year for games.
Absolutely incredible year.
Yeah.
Good year for games.
I was looking. Well, we'll probably talk about most anticipated maybe in a second.
We will.
But I don't think it's gonna be like, unless there's some suddenly unannounced bunch of AAA games.
I agree.
Years like this has happened like
2023.
maybe 3 or 4 times.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Last time this happened was
years
2020,
of console gaming.
So this year reminded me of 2017 a little bit.
2018 for me. Yeah.
And then 2018. Well, I was going to use that example. 2018 happened where I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
It's 28
minutes. Yeah.
What are you so? I'm not saying it's going to be like that, but
it's happened before though.
It's happened before where I think 2017 might be my favorite year of gaming ever. It's never going to be topped. I might have even said that on our podcast when we finished ranking those games. And then as 2018 unfolded, I was just like, oh,
yeah,
this might be
still
better.
be 2018 for me, especially because God of War was like a surprise. I don't know, entry in the field. Like we didn't really know as it was a reboot. We didn't know what to expect
love
from
the original God of War games. I like them, but I don't love them.
I like them.
I love new God of War. So it's like when that was entering the field, I was like, besides that first like showing with the choir and everything, I was like, "Oh, that was a really good showcase."
That was a great
showcase.
Like,
but like, I wasn't expecting it was going to be like maybe one of the greatest games we were all going to play ever.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you like softer, weaker Kratos that is now
I do,
a sissy version of
screaming, banging Kratos is not for me, guys. Yeah. I also want to point out our 1, 2, 3 is Sony, Nintendo, Sony, but we're Xbox. So
we're Xbox. Yeah.
Xbox takes this place down at 8 and 9 with Hi-Fi Rush and Starfield.
I am literally considered the group Xbot by the ponies. So
I
it's
know,
just so funny to
Which
me.
is so funny to me. I could count on one hand how many hours you spent on your Xbox. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't play Starfield. Like Forza Horizon's probably the most time you've spent on a game.
This past year, Forza Motorsport and Horizon were the games I played the most on Xbox.
Yeah, it's just so funny to me.
The console flame wars, the only thing that it's to me that it compares to is like political conversations, because if someone is saying something that is clearly super partisan without like they're straw manning like crazy, and you're kind of like, hey, there's actually another side to this. Like, I think I kind of agree with you, but you do need to see it from this. Like, even if you try to approach it that way, they're like, oh, cool. So you voted for the Nazi party, or like whatever it is. That, like,
no, there's only two extremes that exist, and you're either on my side or you're not on my side.
And it's the same thing here, where it's like, hey, that's a pretty dumb.
I need an enemy, and if I get enough Sony people here, Xbox people here to back me, we have a posse now, and I can feel empowered to say something crazy.
People love posses.
But really, you're just a little bitch behind a keyboard at the end of the day. So that's kind of what it kind of comes down to.
The littlest bitch.
What's a herd of ponies? Is it just a herd, or is it called something? I hope it's got a name.
I don't know. Yeah, a murder of ponies. I don't know.
Dude, I
wonder how crows feel about being called that. That's got to be.
I think they think it's sick.
Call us what?
They're like,
I think it's sick.
We're the coolest animals. We're called a murder.
Yeah,
I'm gonna call it that, bro.
I think it's just a herd of horses, right? Just a herd of ponies.
Yeah, I think it's just herd. That's too bad.
Anyway,
fun fact, crows very intelligent, by the way. Crows very intelligent.
Yeah.
So
intelligent crows in our 5th place Baldur's Gate 3. There's a lot of crows in that game you can talk to. So
true.
Very
intelligent game.
You can talk to every animal in that game if you have the skills for it. But whatever, it's cool.
But it's number 5. It's the 5th best game.
It's number 5, so it's
not revolutionary at all for any reason. You can talk to every dead body in that entire game and reanimate them, but it's cool. We don't have to talk about it.
Basically, we're anti-crows and dead bodies.
There are entire parts of that game you'll never see that I did because of decisions we made. But we can just,
I also like the idea of from now on, anytime a new RPG maker is made, that should be game of the year because you can make anything.
Yeah, the endless possibilities. Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, that's not the best game.
If
Whatever.
Dreams 2 ever come out, or Sackboy the game, like those have to be immediate number ones.
Story, combat, visuals are whatever you want, but sure, it's not the best game. Whatever.
You're the one who made it. If you made a bad game, that's on you.
Yeah, that's on you. That's not their fault. All right, so I'm going to kick things off of our kind of best whatevers of the year, and you can fill in the blank if you've got a list or just kind of want to spitball like, hey, here are some things I liked. Feel free to do that this is how we'll close out this episode as favorite whatever. So I put together some of my favorite backlog games. I didn't play as many as I think I wanted to. I wanted to dive in more this year. Didn't get to as many backlog games, but I was able to get to a few. Number 1 by far was Cyberpunk 2077. I finally went back and played that game, and I absolutely adore it. It is so good. And Phantom Liberty, as I've talked about plenty of times, I've dug into the beginning of it, and I haven't when I dive back into it, that's all I'm going to play. So
it's got to be interesting to know that you have the best content ahead of you too. That's got to be an easy thing to know, like, hey, I haven't even seen the best stuff yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So truly loved that. Enjoyed it a lot. I actually had a list of like old games I played this year, but they weren't necessarily backlog games. I replayed a few things. So I only have 3 that were truly backlog games that I either started and never finished or just never played. So Cyberpunk 2077. Number 2 is Octopath Traveler 1. Finally went back and finished that game, and I love it. All the storylines were really good. Such a good game. And then Quantum Break. I had never even tried it. It's just always been kind of sitting there as this weird kind of game that looks like something I would like, but I never played it, and I didn't have a reason why. I went back and played it, and it was very good. It was like to me like a solid 7.5, 8 out of 10 kind of a game. Like really good. The story is intriguing. So anyway, those are my favorite backlog games. Did you guys have any like that, or do you want to throw a totally different list?
A couple short backlog games. One that Jeff and I shared in Streets of Rage 4.
Oh my gosh, dude.
So
he and
fun.
I co-op that game one sitting. It was absolutely outstanding. Love the combat. Love the graphics. Love the music. Oh my god. Yeah, the music. So incredible. And just like that game is so made to play with somebody. And like I couldn't tell you the last time I played a beat 'em up platformer like that with somebody on a couch next to me.
Yeah.
So just like you're talking about like, nostalgia we were talking about earlier, that's nostalgia. Boy, like that was really something. That's nostalgia, pal. I also played
we played them all, pal.
I played them all, pal. Hitman 1 and 2. I actually went right to 3. Originally I never really got to 1 and 2, so that's kind of weird for me. I don't really usually play games out of order like that.
The newer trilogy, right? Like
yes, of the newer trilogy. Yeah. I'm not playing those PS2 garbage video games. Yeah, I'm probably control like absolute ass. I liked them at the time. Yeah, but I thought these games are absolutely brilliant in a world where I'm missing Metal Gear Solid because Konami does whatever they do. Now it's coming back, so whatever. I needed something like this, a stealth game that was really methodical, really just a play box where you just got to go in and just kind of cause havoc however you wanted to. Very, very good games. The stories are pretty good too. Yeah. And I just like those games a lot. And then the last backlog is I got really into all the GTA Online stuff that I missed over the last 10 years. 10 years of content. I put 100 hours into that game in the last month. 100
content.
It's the
all
fastest.
On like a it's all on like a server that's like just you.
Just for me, and sometimes I had a couple other friends on.
Gotcha. That's cool.
But yeah, it was really, really cool. I was able to do all the missions and all the stuff without getting griefed or having to worry about anybody else online or anything like that. And then whenever I got properly powered, I could go in there and just start like annihilating people. It's just really fun. Man, that game is really something special. And to think about where they're going to go next with that is insane. Like I have no idea like where they're going to go next with this, So yeah, those are my 3 backlogs. So not a lot for me either, Tim. I think we were both new focused this year.
Yeah, either new or I wasn't afraid to go back and replay something that I had finished that I just loved anyway.
Yeah, same.
Well, this is why you don't play Zelda, because then you have hundreds of hours to play old shit like I did.
All right.
I played a lot of old stuff, dude. Let me tell you, dude. So you guys mentioned Streets of Rage. Kyle mentioned Streets of Rage 4. That was awesome. That was so much fun to play. Actually, Octopath Traveler 1, I went back and played because 2 kind of blew my mind so much that I went back and played 1. 2 is far superior. I'll just say that.
It is.
1 is very good though on its own, but like 2 is like, holy crap, dude! They upped their game big time with the writing, and I felt that significantly. So the Gran Turismo movie for some reason got me to play the game GT7 and really enjoyed my time with it. But I ended up sinking more time into Forza Motorsport once that came out. I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why Forza Motorsport. I just like the way those games.
Forza Motorsport is way more approachable, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, maybe that's not what you're feeling, but like just in the pantheon of both things being compared against each other, I feel like Forza's always been known as being a little more approachable.
Right. I did sink, I don't even know how long I was on it. Maybe 8 hours, not that long, but I did play some Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and really, really liked my time.
I played a little bit of that too, and I was like, "Ooh, I need to play this," but then I never went back.
Yeah, I haven't gone back to it yet, but like it's good. It's good. Derek and Kyle weren't lying. I thought they were lying the whole time. I thought they were just gaslighting us into playing a bad game. No, that's not true.
It's so funny because I feel way more strongly about that game last year than I did about any game this year. So
that's so funny. Devil May Cry 5, I mentioned that one. I didn't even play that many missions because it's all broken up by missions or whatever chapters. Yep. I played like 4 maybe, but like I just wanted to experience the combat, and it is awesome.
It's so good.
And then I finally, this game's been out there for a while as like some sort of emulator for Guitar Hero fans, Clone Hero. So I finally took the dive into that, and like you have to like load all these files to your computer to do it, and all this extra crap to get it working. But it turns out that Xbox 360 controllers, the USB for those, work on PC, on Windows specifically, just fine. So I was able to get my guitar working. I actually got a Bluetooth for my drum set that works perfectly on my PC. So that's probably the one I spent the most hours playing on my backlog, is just going through old songs from Rock Band and Clone Hero and Guitar Hero on Clone Hero. Then obviously Mafia 2 and 3, because I beat 1 when the remake came out, and I loved that game so much.
Yeah.
So I finally beat 2. I was already like hours into it, but I was like, let's just start over. Like I don't remember anything.
Story-driven game. You did yourself a service for sure.
Yeah, and I love the way that it ties back into 1 beautifully, like so.
It's amazing,
tragically and beautifully. And then 3, I got like maybe 12 hours into, and then something new came out. I can't remember what it was, but it was one of the bigger games that we've just been talking about, maybe Final Fantasy. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to play this game, go back to this game anytime soon. But I got really far into it. Like I whatever you call it when you take over a region or whatever. I don't know what that's called, but like I want to say like
You
a quarter
mafia'd
of
it.
my
It's
map.
called you mafia'd it.
I mafia'd
Yeah.
it real good, and I got like a quarter of the map was green, which means it was on my side at that point. So like, yeah, all that stuff was really cool. The open world activities are really cool compared to 1 and 2 in that game.
Lincoln is like a Reacher style character who's just bigger and stronger than everybody. He just kind of has that vibe, and he just
he's
destroys.
He's buff AF, and he keeps going back to some burnt down house to store his money. Okay,
yeah.
But at least that's what I'm doing in the beginning half of the game. But yeah, my favorite that I played though is Dead Cells. Like, I mean, that game's combat is just unmatched, dude. It's so freaking good. It feels so good, and it's not even like. I'm not sitting here singing its praises graphically speaking. It's not really visually a masterpiece. But I mean, we're talking about how the game functions. I mean, yeah, that's what it's the best at is the combat. It's probably the best combat, some of the best combat I've ever played, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my backlog ones.
Nice. Dan, what about you? Whether you got that or just any other kind of like favorite.
Yeah, I was trying to like look on my PSN app or something to see like trophies of what I played, like maybe earlier in the year. Because that would have been like when I had any backlog games being played, but I can't, like, I'm not getting anything. I don't think I really like played a lot of backlog games. If I did, it was early.
We're doing some streaming, so you replayed some stuff or played some new stuff.
Yeah.
Like it was a bit of a unique gaming year for you as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And I did, like, you know, I had already mentioned the games that I liked streaming the most.
That's right.
Or so. I mean, I can just do my top 10 that I did earlier, straight from the heart.
Yeah, man.
Shot from my hip.
Yeah, what's your top 10 games of the year? Your personal list.
So 10 would be Starfield. Also a game much similar. Probably why Zelda and Starfield are at the bottom. Tears of the Kingdom at number 9. Just because I did so much in those games that are outside of the main story, which just for me personally, I like to do that. I like to do most of the story, if not all of it, to kind of feel more like have a all-encompassing kind of perspective and view on it. Just for me, because again, it's just story is the most important thing to me in video games. That's what I value the most. So that's kind of why they're at the bottom. But I mean, there's obviously Tears of the Kingdom is excellent, and Starfield, yeah, of course, has its issues. But I mean, traveling through space, man, and just like landing on places and like just meeting like so many different people and all these quests, just like it's insane. It is insane, you know. There's just a lot of game there, so it's kind of insane that it even exists. That they
By
were
the
able
way,
to
I know you haven't gotten there yet, but best new game plus. But go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely outstanding.
Yep.
And not trapped behind a paywall, by the way. Oh,
not trapped behind a paywall.
Hey,
Hey.
RGG, what you doing? Or Sega, I guess it's Sega's call.
All right, so what's number 8?
Sega?
Yeah, I guarantee
8
you
would
RGG didn't choose that.
Yeah,
that was Sega.
That's a stinking of Sega.
Yeah. That's corporate nonsense, brother.
Yes,
8 would be Mario Wonder.
Nice.
What a wonderful game. Yeah, like I said earlier, for me, it's probably my third favorite side-scrolling Mario game now. It really just is really unique visually, and the music is just, you know, fits the uniqueness of the visuals, and it's just incredibly charming. And like those more difficult levels, the 5-star levels, are pretty wild. There's some pretty cool fun ones there. Because the game overall for me felt pretty chill, like it wasn't super difficult. But some of those 5-star ones, I was like, oh, okay, you're actually making me do some stuff. Like, and I was like, oh, now you're giving me something, and it was really fun. So, 7 is Sea of Stars. What a great homage to a couple of the greatest RPGs of all time, in my opinion. Anyways, I mean, Chrono Trigger is up there, but I mean, I love Super Mario RPG. So just what a great video game. Alan Wake 2, I'm like probably not even halfway through, but holy shit, that game is ridiculous. Like. Like presentation wise, that game is like, I don't know, man. Like it's pretty perfect. Yeah. Like it's pretty unbelievable. Just like it I don't know. It's like a movie. There's just all these like quirky little like moments and things, the way it's shot, and like there's the one part where it was Saga and was it Casey when they're taking a sip. The camera shows like the deer head on the wall, and then you're seeing the perspective of the deer head, and they're taking the sip at the same time. Like it's just
Twin
very Twin Peaksy.
Yeah, but it's just so cool because you see the deer, but then you're seeing outside of like from the deer's perspective. Just the shot is really cool, and then they're doing the.
If you saw that shot in a movie, you'd go, "Wow, that's really good cinematography."
Yeah, it's just so cool. It's just.
By the way, is there a trophy for petting all the deer? Because I pet a bunch of them, but not all of them. I wonder if there's a trophy for doing
Is there? I would.
You can add to the deer petting yet.
Every deer head you see, you can with Saga, you can go up and pet it. And
she likes petting.
She knows they're dead, right? She knows that.
She'll even say like, "Oh, this poor guy." Like she'll say something.
Yeah, it's endearing. It's endearing.
Endearing. Yeah.
Speaking of Mario RPG, they remade my first RPG I ever played in my entire life, Super Mario RPG. That's my number 5. Yep. That game is unbelievable, and just the fact that it exists is awesome. Had so much fun streaming that. Baldur's Gate, it may be our number 5, guys, but Kyle, it's my number 4. So.
This doesn't make me feel better. What a wind up to
Dan,
something that made me feel kind of worse, to be honest.
That's part of why it's number 5. To be honest.
Yeah.
Well,
it's Dan's fault, my fault, and Tim's fault that it's number 5 in our list.
There you go.
Kyle just wants any blowback from this to not fall on him. That's.
I don't. Yeah, I don't want. I want my hands to be squeaky.
He wants no heat from.
If it were your number 1, we might, consider things a little bit.
No, it wouldn't have. Y'all would have shafted it. All the same.
Okay.
Yeah. How often did Judgment get in the top 5 because it was my number 1? That never equated to shit.
It got on the list anyway. I don't know.
Listen,
it's true. It's very true.
No judgment on Baldur's Gate 3, but it is like literally one of the most important video games of all time.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. I thought you were going to say trash. Okay. Gotcha.
No, it's literally one of the most important for sure. Octopath 2 is my number 3. That game, like Jeff said, it like had no business being as good as it was.
I definitely call it the even though like Baldur's Gate exists, it is the unsung hero of the year. It is the game that had came out, swung. The people who bought it were like, "Wow, this is amazing." I feel like
it disappeared.
And everybody else that didn't buy it was just kind of like, "Oh, it just looks like the same," and that's what reviews are saying.
Yeah, so like Zelda, or kind of like a lot of people were in this like samey mood, this like, oh, it's just a sequel, it's just the same thing. Like, I don't know, I felt like I heard that a lot this year.
Spider-Man 2, for sure. And
Spider-Man 2 is a big one for that.
Number 8, it's not number 8. 8 out of 10 because it's literally the same game.
It's the same game.
Right. Copy and paste. Well, that copy and paste Spider-Man number 2 is my number 2. So, and number 1, Final Fantasy 16, of course. So.
Yeah, man, it's a good list. A lot of good games this year. Hey, I'm gonna take it negative for a quick second because it's funny.
Awesome.
The 2 games that are vying for my personal opinion of worst games that I've played this year. Like there's a lot of worst games in the industry that people argue about what's worse. I didn't play Skull Island or what's the other? Or Gollum. Like I didn't play some of these really garbage games.
Walking Dead.
Day before. Yeah, I didn't play these games. Yeah. But they're funny how badly they're reviewing. Like that part.
I don't know. Do any of us go out of our way to play bad games on? I don't know if any of us are like that.
Never.
Yeah.
So
I know some people are, but
so the 2 that I played that are tied for worst, and I can't decide which one I dislike more, and I'm a little disappointed because I wanted to like both of them. Atomic Heart, and Redfall are both of the same
Redfall is pretty bad
category for me. Atomic Heart had a little, for me personally, I've said this before, had a little promise at the beginning. I actually thought the visuals were interesting and the setting was a little bit Bioshocky. I was like, maybe there's something here, but then once you got into like, I don't know, the rapey machines and the weird dialogue and the bad gameplay, and it just wasn't good. And Redfall, from the jump, I knew it was going to be bad because of all the noise around it, and it still was uglier and ran more poorly than I could have imagined, and it just wasn't good.
Yeah, I agree. So, that one was not my least favorite. Would have been the Atlas Fallen game. Like it was just so broken.
I didn't try that one. Yeah,
I didn't try it, but that would be still my most disappointed because I wanted
that game to be good so bad.
I heard so much bad stuff. I was like, now.
Yeah, the combat just wasn't fun. It was so freaking stupidly glitchy at launch.
It's dumb.
I got a refund like right away. It was really, really bad. But Redfall is like really close to that too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I played that for free, so who can really complain? I guess.
I know. Yeah, it's not like they didn't keep me up at night. It was more like,
Yeah.
oh, those are bad, and I can move on from them.
Yeah,
But they,
exactly.
I
Atomic
usually
Heart 2
give
was on Game Pass. I forgot about that. That's
I
right.
usually give games that I give at least a little bit of time to, like a quick out of 5 score, like
Yeah.
a 10. It's a 10-point scale, like and those both I gave 2s out of 5, and those are the only 2 that I gave
Nice.
that low.
I'm
A
glad
lot
you're
of
using the
2.5s
whole
and 3s.
number system there. That's good.
Using all of it.
Yeah.
And one more real quick thing. My personal pick for favorite console or platform this year is pretty close between Nintendo and PC/Steam Deck. Those are different
not
platforms, though.
Xbox. That's weird, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
no, that's
I don't
last
know.
place.
He said PC, so that's basically Xbox.
That's basically Xbox. Yeah, so
Right,
Nintendo Switch by far, mainly just because of my favorite game of the year is on there, but also other games I played on there. But then so close behind it is PC and the Steam Deck. And then PS5 also had some great stuff. And then Series X is new to me. I didn't get it until late this fall. So I didn't spend a lot of time playing Xbox, but I have recently played a little more on there and I do like it. But anyway. So those are some of the best of things for this year that I wanted to highlight.
Do you want to since we're on the topic of since we mentioned worst things,
Yeah.
I think you guys can guess what my least favorite movie of the year was.
Oh, wait, hang on. Let's see.
It's probably Kyle's least favorite movie of the year too.
Oh.
I think I know.
Was it a well-known movie? Like I want to do 20
does it
questions.
rhyme with Zack Snyder?
Oh,
Oh, God damn it.
Yeah, Rebel Moon was the least pleasant experience I had watching a movie. It was not good at all.
Yeah, and I would like to remind everybody in chat that I did a lot of due diligence going, I like these types of movies. I'm hoping this is good.
Yeah.
Like I kind of felt
Sci-fi
like
action,
an imposter
sign
at
me
some
up.
point, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not so much.
Didn't do
But
it.
yeah.
And you know what? And I apologize for a lot of these movies sometimes. Fast X is probably up there too. Really, really terrible. Really terrible. It ends on a huge dam explosion. And I'm not saying dam as in damn that damn explosion. I mean like it was like the Hoover Dam and he's driving
you're
on
like
it and it
Randy
explodes.
Quaid from Vegas Vacation, where he keeps
Yeah.
talking about the damn
That's right.
That damn, yeah.
He finally got it done. Yeah.
Oh God, I love that movie. But yeah, it's like exploding behind him and the credits roll, and I'm like, what the? It was so terrible. And Jason Momoa, I have no clue what that guy was trying to. He was trying to keep it entertaining, really, really hard, and it was just so bad. But anyway, sorry, you had my juices flowing.
Oh, I like that. I like the worst movies of the year. That's good. That's good.
Oh man.
Yeah, for me, I didn't see a ton of movies this year, and I didn't hate this one, but the one I have rated lowest would be Genie, that Melissa McCarthy one. It's
I didn't see it.
it's kind of like a sappy Peacock original Christmas movie where she's a genie. And listen, it's not. I think I gave it like a 2.5 or 2 or 2.5. Like it's not offensively bad. It's definitely for families. My kids think it's very funny, and so I laugh along at it with them.
Yeah.
It's a family movie. She's a genie who helps a guy with family problems because she's a genie, and she's kind of like from old times, and so everything new is like confusing. And she eats hand sanitizer. It's that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh.
So
It's-
Elf?
So Elf, yeah.
It's got elements of Elf.
Or Brendan
for
Fraser
sure.
in Blast from the Past.
Yeah, there's elements of all that stuff. So
I love that movie actually.
that might be the worst one. Most of
yeah.
the movies I saw that were from this year, I saw on recommendations, so most of them are good. I just didn't watch them.
Do you
I
have-
honestly think Rebel Moon is the only thing I hate watch this year. Like where I was
Yeah,
halfway
same.
through and I was like, you can stop. You're allowed to stop. And I was like, just keep going.
I have Netflix and I haven't fired that one up because of all the hate around it. Like I don't want to spend time watching this right
What if
now.
you love it because there's so much hate around it? Like
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's
watching
already
it, you're
built
like,
up in your
everyone was
mind,
being
yeah.
really obnoxious about this.
I'll
can
get a
see
Rebel
that.
Moon tattoo right here because I love
Yeah.
it.
I don't know if you're gonna like it that much, but
Oh, man.
I
it's
do
better than
have,
Star Wars. I said it, guys. It's better than Star Wars.
I have a list related to
Take that back.
movies since we're on the topic. If you want me
Yeah,
to just
sure.
go, it's the top 5 old movies or TV shows that I watched for the
Oh,
first.
nice. Okay.
My number 5 is a movie. It's Ruby Sparks. I'd never seen it before. Kyle saw it
favorite,
a long time ago.
one of
and
my
recommended it to me.
favorite movies of all time. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
heard of it.
it's so good. It's Paul Dano and Zoe Kazan are in it, and they're married now. The
With that
premise is
chemistry, how couldn't they be?
Yeah, I know exactly. The premise is actually the whole cast is really good. I just can't remember other people off the top of my head, but I was like, oh, they're in it too. Oh my god. But the premise is Paul Dano's a writer and he's really struggling, and then he happens to write his perfect ideal girlfriend into existence, played by Zoe Kazan. And then it's one of those things where it's kind of like the same thing with Genie movies, where you get your 3 wishes, but is it really what you wanted? And it's kind of exploring that like dynamic of like what do you really
it's
want out of a
perfect
relationship?
what you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, this
What your
cast
idea
is
of perfect
crazy.
is.
Yeah,
Sounds
it's
like
a really
happy
good
version
cast.
of Alan Wake.
Yeah,
It-
it's kind of like got some
dark.
Stranger Than Fiction kind of vibes. You know?
That Will
It's just-
Ferrell one, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like that, but like it's a rom-com. Yeah.
Okay.
Stranger Than
Yeah.
Fiction is far more existential, and I love that movie.
I do too. Yeah.
But my number 4 was The Pacific, the
Super
TV
good.
show, like the follow-up to Band of Brothers,
show.
basically.
Great series.
Pacific Theater.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, that
Good,
new Apple
too.
series that's World War II based looks intriguing.
Next
I'm
week.
interested to
Yeah.
see.
Masters of the Air, dude. Yes.
Yes.
Next
Got,
Sunday. Yeah.
Austin Butler. He's like,
Isn't it producers, Band of Brothers,
the
and
hottest cast of World War II people I've
Yeah.
ever seen in my entire
I know,
life.
and they're all
It's
pilots.
such a,
Yeah.
Everyone knew this about World War II. It's a hot people war.
Yeah,
Everybody in World War
the
II was
hottest
so
war.
hot.
The
Yeah.
hottest.
we've
No
seen the
ugly mugs
pictures.
anyway.
It's
Yeah,
been my only
we've seen
gripe
the
so
pictures.
far. I'm like, these handsome bastards.
Yeah.
Like there is not one toothless person in the bunch. I don't believe
and
it.
they're all like sweating and looking off into the distance. It's like
Yeah, the
stop.
hair is perfectly
Stop.
feathered, you know.
Yeah.
Like, come
But
on.
I know
come
at some
on,
point some of these boys are gonna have their limbs missing and they're gonna be on
Right.
fire, and so,
So
like,
let 'em have their
Yeah,
moment.
let them have their
Yeah,
moment.
exactly.
Yeah.
I've heard early reviews of that show is like it's really good, and I'm like, yeah, no shit. But I can't
Oh,
wait for
really?
it. 10
Yeah.
years in the making, dude. They literally had to pause making it because it was like CG's not up to par. We can't do it yet. So they like kind of like with Avatar 2, they were like, well, yeah, let's catch up to it. Let's let it catch up to us, basically. I love the Pacific so much. So many of my favorite moments in like any war movie or TV show ever come from the Pacific. It's so good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
My number 3. This is get ready. This is number 2 and 3 are Snooty Jeff cinephile. Whatever snobby
Jeff.
picks. Number 3 is these. Number 2 and 3 are black and white movies. Number 3 is The General. It's a Buster Keaton movie. And it's literally the basis for all stunt work in Hollywood. Period. It's him chasing a runaway train that he's a conductor and he like happens to let it get away from him. And they shoot a lot of these stunts for real because you had no choice. It was like the 20s. So like he's chasing a
1926.
train.
This movie's
Yeah.
almost 100 years old.
Yes. And it's like
Wow.
a less than 90-minute watch. It's super short. But like the shit that he's doing with like things collapsing near him or him jumping on the train or stepping in front of it while it's moving or whatever, you're like, they did this for real. They had no choice. It's so freaking crazy. On top of that, it's just a really good movie. My number 2 is Passion of Joan of Arc. It's a foreign movie, but it's like about the trial of Joan of Arc and like how this like whole crew of Christian judges were basically like, why is your hair like that? Why do you dress like a dude? You must be possessed by a demon. Because back then that was their only explanation for anybody not acting in accordance with societal norms was you must be a demon. But it's like really good, really well shot, super good, super affecting too. And for being another 20s whatever era movie, I think it's that old, if I'm not mistaken. It holds up big time. And the last thing is obviously, of course, Attack on Titan. That's number 1.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean,
Anime weeb.
Yeah, it's gotta be my favorite thing I've ever watched. Like, period.
I need to still finish that. Like, how did Jeff finish Attack on Titan before me?
How
Hey,
did
Jeff,
that
spoil
happen?
it for him right now.
That's
Give him
cool.
the biggest
No,
spoiler.
no.
The Titans, they attacked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
big time. They attacked
yeah.
God
so
damn,
hard.
Jeff.
Oh my god.
All right, I'm out.
Yeah, there's
I'm
a great
The worst.
thematic. There's a lot of thematic stuff.
Oh, Dan's out.
Okay. All right. See you later. So
Time out.
there's a lot of thematic stuff in the final chapters, at least, that I'm like, whoa, I didn't expect that. Like this version of existentialism and cycles and stuff about the life experience in the final chapter that they specifically reserved. It felt like for the final chapters. Like if you watch it in completion with the whole final season, I don't know, some things thematically won't really, like the final season's just stacked full of like spy stuff and action. The final chapters feel a little more, there's action in them, don't get me wrong, but they feel a little more like emotional resonance and thematic
Well, there's so
resonance.
many reveals that they have to work through too.
Yeah,
Big time,
absolutely. They paid off big time, dude. That show is just one of the best of all time, for real.
Nice.
But yeah, that's
a good list. I like that.
list.
Yeah.
Old movies and TV shows that, and some of them aren't old. They're just ones that weren't out this year that you finally got to. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, the movies that came out in the 20s, obviously, yes.
the Buster Keaton 100-year-old movie, that one's old.
Yeah.
I mean, he
Super old.
died like 20 plus years before most of us were born. Like that's
that's
and he was
insane.
old when he died. He was like in his 80s. Like that's how old that movie is.
And hey guys, if you think something like as trivial as your name is holding you back from success, his name was Buster Just letting you know that.
Buster.
Buster.
Hey, I'm
Buster.
Buster.
I'm Buster. Yep. All right. Anybody else have a? And I have a couple too, so I'm just making sure if there's.
Yeah,
other
I do have
favorites.
a list that's unrelated to anything games, TV show, or movies.
Okay.
It's the top 5. Sorry, I didn't have 10. Top 5 absurd or unintentionally hilarious world events.
Okay.
Okay.
Number
Fascinating.
5.
Yeah.
Number 5. George Santos. That's all that's all I
Just say
wrote.
his name. If you don't know, go Google it. You'll have a good time.
That's it. What a sassy bitch. Number 4. Number 4.
Wow.
USA Today hires a full-time Taylor Swift reporter. That is a real thing that happened.
Why? Just why? Just why?
Number
You got
3.
nothing better to do. Nothing better.
Number 3. Kid Rock shooting a bunch of Bud Light cans with an automatic rifle, as if
I
it's some sort of
remember that.
own.
Yes,
I
that's
remember
right.
Like,
Good video.
You still bought those, bro. All right. Anyway.
Yeah, they got your money, dude.
Yeah. Thanks.
And that was really good marketing for them too, just FYI.
Also, hold
Yeah,
on.
it
So,
was.
and everybody was pissed at them, but then they started drinking something else that was still the same company, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's still the Anheuser-Busch. Yeah, it's still Anheuser-Busch.
So it's like
yeah.
you're still giving them the money. Like you
Yeah.
guys are morons.
Yeah.
You're all morons.
Most
Like,
people who boycott don't do any research.
They don't
So
think
Sure.
about it.
Sure.
My number 2 was number 1 for the longest time until recently. My number 2. I act like I didn't just put this together like 2 days ago. My number 2 is the Ocean Gate Titan implosion. Come on, man.
oh my gosh.
How is that
Hey,
not number 1? I cannot
that
wait to
is-
hear number 1 if that's not
that
number
is video
1.
game related because they were using a video game
Oh my
controller.
God.
Yeah, yeah.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
I completely forgot
It's
about
a nice
that. Oh
trip
my
down
God.
memory lane. I love this. Yeah.
My number
Is it
1
so?
is pretty biased, and it's also sports related, but it's Aaron Rodgers' first drive as a Jet player.
When he got injured for the rest of the
Yes.
season.
Wow.
All those millions and millions of dollars just getting flushed down the drain. Oh my God, that guy sucks so
But
bad.
do you know,
Oh.
even before the game, he came around that with an American flag, and he was the hero, and then he like his leg broke in half or whatever. His,
Oh.
Snapped in half.
his Achilles got snapped in the fourth.
Oh
play.
man, have you seen? You don't have to agree with everything he says in the rant, but have you seen Daniel Tosh's rant about Aaron Rodgers? Because it's so funny. He had an emergency podcast about Aaron Rodgers, and it was like 10 minutes of him
I gotta watch that. I love
ranting
Tosh.
about how stupid he is. It's so funny.
I love Tosh.
Man.
Emergency podcast.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is just a modern day hippie who happens
Yeah,
to be an
he's-
athlete.
Yeah. He's like, I don't know, man. It's just this whole.
He's a
and
modern
Daniel
day-
Tosh
dude,
touches
think-
on it. He
think back
touches
to
on it better
hippies.
than I could. You
Like,
know.
think back to hippies. They said things with so much confidence that had no bearing in reality or
Right,
science
right.
or medicine, and
Yeah.
we kind of just laugh at them as hippies. That's what he is. He's a
Yeah.
hippie.
It's
hippie.
our era's version of that, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, because it
Just
kinda
less fun, less
started. I
flowers,
noticed
you know.
our version of hippies are like people that are like 9/11 didn't happen, and I'm like, what the fuck
Exactly.
are you talking about?
They're
Yeah, they're hippies, but like a different kind. Yeah, a different breed.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Or flat earthers. They're a good time, man. That's so
Oh
fun.
my God.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh,
The
was it
self
you or
own
Dan
of the
that
guy
shared-
who like proved it
Did
to
I say?
himself
Yeah, I said.
Yeah.
with the light.
And
Because
he's
I've
like,
seen
oh.
that so many times, but I never seen it
Okay.
with the Curb Your Enthusiasm bit at the end. That
Yeah,
was so
yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite moments of the year. Was the guy who self-owned by discovering through his experiment that
Yes.
the Earth is round. But, I mean, of
God,
course, they didn't
boy.
admit they didn't admit
Man,
it. But
such a perfect
of
metaphor
course.
for most things in
Ah,
science
that's
that
really
people
good.
don't believe anymore. But yeah, that's the only other random list I had. Everything else is related to most anticipated, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
yeah, we'll wrap it up with most anticipated for 2024. Dan or Kyle, anything other? I think I only have one other kind
I
of
have
like
one list.
favorite thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you got, Kyle?
I have a favorite moments in game list, so
Ooh, yeah.
I just picked one moment from
Love
every
that.
game in my top 10.
Yeah.
This is not going to be an order of my top 10. I'll let you know kind of the 4 that stood out and the other 6 that were just also big, but maybe
Sweet.
weren't. Landmark. Spider-Man 2 being technically stunning, just going as fast as you possibly could in that game, and then it not crashing.
Yeah.
Which we didn't talk
Yeah.
about, like in the ranking, might be one of the biggest technical marvels in video games.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think it's just like, I think the development of this game is not sung praises enough, and I don't think anything on Earth plays as well as this game at these types of speeds. I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't know if there
Yeah.
is anything out there,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Only with the power of the PS5 SSD.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Remember Still
Aside from
Process, guys? We
Forza
had
or
fun.
something, you're driving a car insanely fast, but
Yeah, but even then, like it's not as impressive because
there's a lot of load screens in that game.
Sure.
Still, yeah.
Yeah.
With Spider-Man 2, you're right. It's wizardry. I don't understand it.
I really don't understand it. The amount of
It's
like not
the
loading there
SSD,
is,
guys.
the amount like the minimal pop in, like it's totally crazy to me.
Amazing.
Tim and I kept on saying it all episode, but the ending to Starfield is absolutely amazing. Very like why? Oh, someone actually thought about continuing the story in a way that no one's ever thought about before. Crying at the end of Like a Dragon Gaiden. Crocodile big tears. We're allowed to say that now because Derek's gone. So
all tears. Shed
Emotions
so
are
hard.
allowed.
I cried harder than I did when I cried at Journey. You hear that, guys? I didn't cry at Journey, but I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
But
I
then
thought you were going to
harder
see
than
something
Journey, yeah.
personal to you, like somebody's funeral.
Yeah. I cried harder at this than whenever my favorite uncle died. I will also say, speaking of laughing, we're all laughing now. Baldur's Gate 3, laughing with my friends while playing this game.
Yeah.
It was insane the amount of stuff that we were torturing ourselves with, from someone like doing something really important and me just shoving them off a cliff, and him yelling at me for the rest of the night because I'm being a bastard, like that type of stuff, that kind of tomfoolery, everybody just being grade schoolers. It just was so hilarious to me. We're screaming at each other more than we're screaming at the game, I think we were bigger enemies to each other than the game ever was to us, so it was just such a good time. I will try and remain spoilerless for this one, but someone really important shows up at the end of Star Wars.
Oh
Yeah.
Oh,
and it's just like a moment that, like, no matter how often I see this important person, it's still cool. It's still awesome. It still has weight. Like, you can keep going back to that well they've proven to this particular character and like get this type of like moment, so
Jar Jar Binks.
huge moment.
Yaddle.
Dan, you're gonna love it, I promise.
We both referenced somebody. Hell yeah. I said Yaddle. You said Jar Jar. That's funny.
It is Jar Jar. How'd y'all know? Secret boss Jar Jar.
Darth Jar.
Now we're kind of into these are the maybe 5 of the greatest things I've ever seen in my entire life in a video game. Like, just made totally I'll remember for the rest of, I'll be on my deathbed and I'll go, oh, Bahamut, or whatever. So we'll get there. Remnant, the Q boss in Remnant. I've never seen a boss like this in my entire life. It was absolutely outstanding. Whenever you think about like Souls bosses, the design of that boss, the creativity of that boss, this is that, but in my opinion, better. I just absolutely love the design of this boss. We Sing and Alan Wake, we've already talked about this. Absolutely outstanding. I'm just like, you could see it at the Game Awards. You could watch it on YouTube. You could see the music video. Nothing compares to playing it with a controller in your hand. The freedom of being able to look around in that moment.
Yeah.
It not being as guided as you may think it is,
Yeah.
Fights erupting in that moment while all this stuff is going on.
Getting a new weapon to then use in those fights.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
It was just one of the coolest things ever in a video game. Just absolutely was. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
Also, Tim and I brought this up earlier. Getting the Master Sword, maybe the most magical thing I've ever experienced in a video game. Just the whole thing from start to finish. Dan, I'm sorry, you brought this up too. That whole moment of just going on that adventure and where you end up and where you get the sword from and what that means and what the story implication for what that means is just a moment that, like what Dan is talking about, that's story, baby. Like that is like a huge moment. That is just a droplet in what that game is.
End of the game has an additional reveal connected to that, by the way.
Oh, so excited for that.
Yeah.
Jesus. So now these are kind of in order, kind of these last 5. My number 2 was Diablo 4, the Hell sequence. Not just going there and playing it, but like the actual cutscene that you've seen.
Oh my god!
Like back in the day, like we would crave for stuff like this from like Final Fantasy and just like high budget, obviously not in game, FMV sequences, cutscenes. Like this is like the best one I've ever seen in my entire life. Of course, this is what Blizzard does. Of course, they do this. Of course that they're are at the forefront of creating like some of the best cutscenes ever. I think like it and like the Knights of the Old Republic MMO like trailers kind of stand out as like universally beloved. Sequences. This, I'm telling you, is the coolest thing ever. Like, it's so absolutely outstanding, and just the amount of detail and like these. It's like you're watching a movie for a moment, and it is like 30 minutes long. Like this cutscene, it's really long.
Yeah, it is. My controller was like dimming the screen. It was like, oh, it's not alive.
Okay, stop. Stop that. Yeah. And my number one was the Bahamut fight in Final Fantasy 16. If that's a spoiler, sorry. He is the most popular summon in all of Final Fantasy. If you didn't think you were going to fight him, I think you're dumb. So sorry if that's a spoiler, but and
we won't say who the character is, but the tie-in with who the character is.
Yeah, the tie-in. So that reveal on itself is really good.
But then, also, the fact that things have happened with that character that you didn't think that fight might even happen, but then things happen where it does happen. You know, it's all very like, oh my gosh.
Then there's moments like around that fight.
Well, there's the conclusion after, and then there's what happens involved.
There's some talking that fight. There are consequences because of that fight. You know,
so good.
It's not just the cutscene itself, and this is why maybe it's above the last thing, is because like you're watching a cutscene that's interactive. Like you're right there controlling what is one of the coolest cutscenes in video games ever. You know, you want to talk about why we play video games. Moments like this, the Bahamut fight, are why I play video games for sure.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Number one moment, I'll be on my deathbed going, oh, you know, Bahamut, I'm gonna shoot a Kamehameha at him, you know, and I'll die, you know. So,
dude, it has Dragon Ball Z vibes, because right as you think they can't get more powerful and go to the next level, they do, and it's
they go bigger and they go to space. It's just crazy. Sorry if that's a spoiler. You should have played this game.
They Voltron maybe a little too, a little bit.
A little Voltron happening.
Straight up Dragon Ball Z. They did a dance. No.
Yeah. And they broke into song like an Alan Wake 2.
I love that, Kyle.
10 favorite moments.
Excellent. Yeah. I don't have a top 10, but I echo most of those, the ones that I've experienced as well. I'll also throw in there the ending of Hi-Fi Rush. If you haven't beat it, I do recommend the way they use music, and the gameplay in that is an excellent finale in that game. It's really, really, really good. Especially if you've enjoyed the vibe and the tempo.
I would say the whole vibe should have been a moment on my thing, just because like I remember you brought this up, but like when you see everything dancing in the background to the beat, everything is about the rhythm.
Or if you stop moving, he'll still snap his fingers in the beat.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's so good. It's just everything's keeping tempo, and it's I think that in itself is like super memorable. So,
but the conclusion, you know, there's a big face off and all this stuff's happening. I mean, it's a very silly game, but it gets as close as it can to being, you know, serious at that moment, and things are like important for you to do well. Anyway, very, very, very good ending I'll throw out there. I would also say Hogwarts Legacy has a few really good moments. I don't know if I can narrow it down to one. There's a couple side quest moments where you have to make a decision that are pretty impactful. That'll stick with me. That really end up affecting, you know, various people's well-being. You know, in some of those cases. So Hogwarts has a few of those moments.
That's another one that should be on my list as well, just because, like, again, I'm not a big fan of that property, but like I suddenly became one overnight. Where now it's like, is this new HBO show coming? I know people don't give a shit about this new HBO show coming out, but I'm kind of like, ooh, I am
very excited.
Is this new stuff that I can, you know, pay? Yeah, curious is a good word. Yeah.
Also, I didn't expect me and Kyle to, like, you know, in our group chat to have conversations about like animals from Harry Potter by name at any time soon. So the fact that like Kyle was like Hippogriff this and stuff like that, and like Puffer Skiff that, and I'm like, how do you know these?
The moment when you realize you can raise creatures and then breed them, and then like those were great magical moments in that game.
Well, things that like kind of seemed dumb to me before, I was like all on board with. You know what I mean? Just like, again, like just the whole idea of like, you know, wizard school and like little kids harnessing this power. It's like totally just lost on me. But then when you're in there controlling it and you're just like, oh my god, no, this is like
so cozy
world, but which all this stuff is in the books. You know, these are just things that I'm having to come to terms with late in my life, where I'm like, oh no, people were right about this one. This is just a really interesting world.
People were right.
Oh no.
I was wrong all these years. Yeah.
There's a
horrible feeling, I can't lie.
A moment that launches you into the final act of Jedi Survivor that I did not see coming, that was very emotionally and like adrenaline pumping, impactful, so good.
Yeah, I can't wait for Dan to get there, dude.
I just didn't see it coming. Like sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. And this one, I definitely did not. And
I felt like a lot of people feigned. They were like, I saw that coming, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what to tell you on that one. But
there were no hints of it, but okay.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming at all. Yeah,
but it launches you into a really fascinating final act.
Absolutely, it was one of the only times in anything, like a movie or a game, anything, that I went. Like I barely react to anything.
Literally
nowadays.
gasp.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell? No,
no. I mean, even the beginning of that game, like, you don't necessarily know those people at all.
Oh my gosh, dude! Yes.
Like, it just, I felt something. I was like,
no,
shit.
absolutely,
All right.
man. And that's Star Wars magic, because Star Wars does this all the time too, where like a cold open will happen and someone will kind of like die or make a sacrifice, and you're like, oh no, they were kind of cool.
Yeah, we had such
kind of
good
the same
banter.
thing here, where you meet these people for a second, you're like, I kind of like the vibe. These people are really comfortable around each other. It looks like they've been doing missions with each other for a while, and then suddenly, you know.
Yep.
Cold open death, you know.
One other one I'll highlight real quick. We talked about it in our spoiler cast for this game, so I won't say all the details, but there's a moment in Spider-Man 2 where Miles helps Peter, and I'm just going to remember that for a long time. Like, that was a really incredible. I mean, a lot of that game has great moments, but that moment, there was something about the build up to it. The game, as you're playing it, you build up to it. We talked about this in the spoiler cast.
Crescendo effect, man.
And then that moment where you finally, where Miles can finally help. So good.
It's combining the two Spider-Man, like, because I mean, the fact that we got two Spider-Man, we could play between two Spider-Man, and their interactions was just like, what an absolute joy. That happened. But yeah, like you're saying, the classic black suit Spider-Man, but the fact that Miles is doing, he's the one that's saving Peter in that moment, and he's a kid, like he's still a kid. Right. So like he has all of this responsibility and all of this weight on his shoulders, helping, you know, in the prime of his like career, Spider-Man, you know, like in this moment of weakness, like it's just like, yeah, dude, like
the music really drove the
music
drama of that scene too. So good.
Which this is very random. I was curious about, after I finished that game, I was so impressed with all the voice actors, but the I forget the kid's name. I can't remember if it's the one from who does Miles in the movie or in the game. I think it's the one in the game. Anyway, he is in a, because I was looking at what he's done on IMDb. He's
the one that voices Miles in the game looks like Miles in the game. He's like,
so I think it's him. I'm pretty sure it's him. You can look it up to confirm this. I'm pretty sure he's in a rom-com movie. I never saw it. It's a Netflix movie.
Oh, okay.
With the girl who just got cast as Dina. I just kind of like, you know, when you're on IMDb, you just kind of like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever. Like, it just had one of those moments where I'm like, oh, it's the girl who just got cast as Dina in The Last of Us season 2.
Oh, Casina. Yeah. Oh, well. Oh, never mind. I know what you're talking about. Kate. Wait.
Something Merced.
Isabel. Yeah, Isabel is something. She was Dora the Explorer. Whatever.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
One other quick list I wanted to share. I probably have a bunch of these, but here's one I wanted to share real quick. My favorite exploration and open world. I won't dig into them. I'm just going to list them. Starting at number 1, Tears of the Kingdom, and it's not close. But then a bunch of the rest of them are close. Hogwarts Legacy. Loved exploring that whole area and the castles, especially.
Oh my gosh.
Starfield. It's easy to crap on it for certain elements of it, and I get it. But if you actually play it as they want you to play it, the discovery, and as Dan even has attested to, the way you can get distracted for hours and have a good time is very
exploration and Bethesda are like synonymous, you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely,
they're synonymous terms, you know.
Spider-Man 2, it's a city you've been to before, but it's bigger. They've added to it, and there's more to do. I loved exploring that city, and swinging around and gliding around has never felt better. So part of exploration is how does it feel to traverse that area, and Spider-Man 2 is up there.
I don't know if there's anything better than swinging. I mean, like,
it's just so good. It's so satisfying.
I really don't. I honestly don't know if there is anything.
So satisfying. And the only other one I'll highlight there is Dredge, which I do think is a good time to explore that little ocean world. It's a good time. I like that a lot. So, all right, guys, let's wrap it up with our most anticipated games for 2024. Here's how we're going to do it, just also for the sake of time. I mean, we're not too far. I mean, this is about the length of our Game of the Year episodes. They're in the 3.5 hour range. That's fine. So we'll wrap it up with this. But instead of each of us talking for a long time, I'm just going to have each of us name one game, and we'll go to the next person. What's one more game you're anticipated? I don't care if you want to do it in a certain order. You can rank them. I didn't really rank them. I just kind of have.
I don't have them ranked,
Yeah, I just have some games I'm pumped for this year. So, Dan, we'll start with you. What's one of your most anticipated for 2024?
I was going to be funny and think of some random game.
Something
but
other than Final Fantasy.
Yeah, but it's something other than Final
There are
Fantasy.
no other games besides
frickin' Rebirth. Literally, like, there are games that are coming out in February that I'm like, I want to play these. I'm literally not picking anything up, guys. I'm not I'm just not gonna have the time. I'm just literally because I'm working on some backlog stuff. Like I just don't have the time. So I'm literally just gonna be like these next however many weeks until was it 40 days until the game comes out.
Every day that goes by and it's not delayed is a good day.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, Rebirth. It's Rebirth. It's absolutely 1000% Rebirth.
By the way, you're probably safe to play some February games. This game is essentially a March game. It comes out in the leap year.
Yeah, it does.
February 29th. So it's
But
basically
like the games that I want are not going to be short games. Like
you'd still be playing them. I see.
Dragon's Dogma's not going to be short. Grand Blue probably not going to be short.
Yeah.
Persona 3 definitely not going to be short.
Grand Blue is like the whole month. You have the whole month.
I
suspect Grand Blue will be shorter than Persona 3, though. That's for sure.
Still gotta finish Alan Wake.
Persona
Still
3
gotta finish
is very long.
Alan Wake, Star Wars, Hogwarts.
Yeah, I'm still working on these games here. So
true.
Yeah. All right, I'll throw one out there. Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes. I cannot wait for this game. It comes out in April.
Good.
And it looks gorgeous. I love me some
that
Suikoden.
2.5D,
So looks
slick
amazing.
style to it. Yeah.
Can't
There's
wait.
2.5 wieners in the game?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's immature.
2.5 dudes.
Low hanging fruit. Low hanging.
Also immature.
hanging balls.
Kyle, what about you? What's something you're hyped for?
Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, and it's probably going to be my game of the year. So where I'm getting it next week, and then I'm just going to close shop after that. I'm not going to play any more games.
Bye, everybody.
I'm done. I'm done receiving.
I'm
games.
done. I'm done. It's supposed to be the longest
everyone.
one yet. It's going to be awesome. The amount of mechanics and like side stuff to do just seems stupid. To be fair,
It looks like this might be more of a Tim game than I realized.
you can build
an
an entire island.
Yeah, the
for
building
no
stuff
reason.
is very new.
No, stop it.
Yeah.
Can you really?
Yes. There's a whole what's that game that you and I like, Dan, with the villagers?
Animal Crossing?
Yeah, Animal Crossing. It's
Animal
literally
Crossing.
Animal
Okay,
Crossing. Yeah.
Dude, I loved building an Animal Crossing.
Yeah, it's
just
also
so fun.
Nude Beach Simulator. Can't wait.
Oh yeah. Building
Jeff,
beach islands.
what's a
I'm just
game
going to
you're
get my most anticipated out of the way, but it's also most likely to get delayed in 2025. So Star Wars Outlaws.
Yes.
I mean,
yes. It's gonna be so good.
Uber hyped for this. If it plays the way that it looked in the
Let it cook.
preview that we saw, I mean,
Let it
it's
cook.
easily going to be.
It's the Division, folks, right? So it could feel like
it is.
Division.
It's
when
a
you shoot.
Division, folks. I
Great.
feel like they do really good at open worlds and like
do.
putting
Shooting
things
feels
into
good.
the open world to like make you do stuff.
The shooting in third person is going to feel awesome.
Third
that
person
much I
shooting
know.
for Division games it's super
Yes.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But yeah, if it functions like the way that you get out of a planet, like somebody used this as an example on a TikTok to try to make a point of how this is how Starfield should have been, and then it showed a clip from that, a game that hasn't come out yet, of you flying out of a planet, and that's your load screen. That's your like secret load screen, is you getting into the ship and then powering everything up and flying off. And I'm like, the game hasn't even come out yet, first off. But don't get me wrong.
And there's only going to be like
functions.
two planets, I think, too. So there's not going to be.
I don't need this to be No Man's Sky or Starfield.
Right.
No,
I would. Yeah, especially with a game like a name like Star Wars Outlaws. I'm not going to be like this better be open.
Yeah, I want shootouts and I want some bad guys to hunt down. I want to make money.
Especially because Division's very good at the maps that they stick to, and they're not very large. Like they're not very large at all.
They're set in
dense
cities.
They could have buildings, but like that's it.
They're set in huge cities, but you don't explore the entire city by any stretch.
Exactly.
And we saw when they were escaping onto the shuttle, like there's a lot of like backcountry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you get out of the city and they're just
That's right.
So it might be kind of like an Assassin's Creed game, which again is Ubisoft. So there's probably going to be a lot of DNA shared here.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of Ubisoft DNA here, which I know people scoff at, but like I kind of like the formula for Ubisoft.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Games. I do, yeah.
Especially with how they're
game tried and true, and they're comfortable, and I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I think that maybe we got too much of them in a small, point of time, but I don't think.
But Ubisoft's been a little quiet. And by the way, Prince of Persia: Lost Crown was one of my most anticipated, but it's now out, so it's no longer on that
and it
list.
is delivering on the most.
It is absolutely delivered. Yeah. Dan, what else? Anything else for 2024 you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that Star Wars game. That game looks ridiculous.
Yeah, so like, good. And I love it's a game with no lightsabers. It's blasters. You're a smuggler. It's grimy.
At least no lightsabers that you're using.
Your character is not going to become a Jedi halfway through
right.
The game,
and there's a crime system too. Like, I'm wanted now. Whoops.
Yeah.
I burn bridges with the Empire. They're going to be hunting me everywhere now.
That's why Star Wars Galaxies
was
was
the
so
Pike
good.
Syndicate. They're going to hate me. Yeah, I love
That's why the Galaxies MMO was so fun, because it wasn't necessarily lightsaber centric.
So good.
It's actually kind of insane that we're getting Dragon's Dogma 2 though.
There you go, man. Good
And
pick.
like that for
Yes.
me, it's like holy crap, like because like for so long people, because that game like has like a loud fan base. I just don't know if it's large.
No, it's passionate.
Yeah.
And I think everyone just kind of like, we're never gonna get another one, and that's okay.
Right.
Like,
But they still
here
asked
we
for it.
are.
We're like, please, can we get another one?
Yeah,
And then here we
yeah.
are. We're getting another one. And it looks ridiculous. And I just, I don't know. I'm excited for people who didn't play the first one to try this one, because like seriously, like I don't know why more games didn't have the mechanic of climbing on monsters and like hacking at them, or like cutting off certain body parts and then kind of weakening them, because like you cut their tail and they're just on the floor like flailing about, and you're just going to just slashing away. I don't know, it was just something really like super cool, and like again shocking that they didn't have that in more games. But yeah, Dragon's Dogma 1 it's very weird, it's very quirky, but
I'm
it's just
surprised
really...
more things weren't lifted from that game as well.
Yeah.
And I would also argue that like it kind of has Breath of the Wild climbing mechanics before Breath of the Wild did. So like there are shades of Dragon's Dogma that did move forward, but things I'm surprised that didn't move forward like that.
Yeah.
All right, I'll throw out a really random one. Again, this is not in any kind of order, because you guys have already mentioned some that I'm very, very excited for. So I won't rehash those. Here's a random one though that got announced recently that I think is easy to forget. Comes out on March 8th, called Unicorn Overlord.
Yes.
Published by Atlas,
call,
developed
man.
by Vanillaware. It looks kind of like Ogre Battle, but it looks amazing, man.
This studio has never made a bad game. Like perfect batting average, yeah.
Crush it. So excited for that one. That is one that Dan's gonna miss initially because it's March 8th. That's literally 8 days after Rebirth comes out. But I could see you circling back to it at some point, Dan.
That seems like a Dan game to me.
Yeah.
That's another one. Kyle, what else? Anything else?
Persona 3 Reloaded got brought up, so I won't count that as my pick or whatever. But yes, very excited for that game. That's super soon. But my next pick is gonna be Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2, man.
Oh
so excited for this game. The co-op's going to be excellent. I've got so many people who want to play this game. It's going to be so cool, man.
We're going to have a big
February
party.
8th, yeah.
We're going to have a big party going in our PS chat, whatever.
I'm Diablo days, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We had like 2 or sometimes 3 even different games going, and we're all cross talking.
Yeah, like 8 people talking over each other.
That's kind of fun,
which like usually is my nightmare, but for whatever reason, Diablo, I really loved
that.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Jeff, what about you? What else?
Definitely Helldivers 2 and Persona 3 Reload. I'm excited to experience a Persona game at ground level. Because when I first tried Persona 5, it was like, I'll just try it. Like it wasn't like I was doing this podcast that, like I didn't have much motivation. I wasn't as into gaming as I am now. I'll just try it. But yeah, this one's different. This one's like, I really want to see it through. Anyway, I'm kind of sort of going in order, I guess. My second most anticipated, I didn't think I would care about this when I saw it in like a headline. I saw a remake was coming, and then I saw the footage and I was like, never mind, I want all of that. It's the Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons remake.
Looks amazing.
This looks incredible, dude. Oh my God. I can't wait to cry all over again. I loved my first time with that game, and the I don't know, the graphical upgrades look seriously improved. Like you're very much third person associated,
which already had a pretty nice style to it that
it
held up fine.
It was more like top down for the most part, but yeah, this one's kind of more not so much over the shoulder because you're still using the two joysticks for one brother.
It seems lower to like closer to
it
the
does
though,
for sure. More modern for sure. I'm super stoked for that.
Yep. Dan, what about you? Anything else you're hyped for this year?
So Foam Star. No, I'm just kidding.
Not Splatoon.
Which, by the way, using AI art, so that's cool. That's always good.
That's rad.
And also I don't know if you guys have been seeing all over social media, people getting really up in arms about PAL.
Yeah.
Was it PAL Worlds with that stuff? And I've seen
I just brought that up in our chat. You haven't looked at the chat in a minute, but it's in there. Yeah. Because I found that very fascinating too.
There was one particular Pokemon, I forget which one it was, but like the eyes and the mouth were like basically identical. It's like
there's plenty of Pokemon that are basically identical in many ways, except for like a couple key factors.
sure.
Yeah.
Adjacent, and I still think someone's gonna get sued.
I do think it's
honest.
it's a tricky thing for them to dig at because there's been so many other Pocket Monster ripoff things since
Sure.
It's true.
Pokemon's come
You're right.
out.
Yeah.
That
So, like,
also
why would they
share
pick on this
like
one?
likabilities and their
This
content.
reminds me of
Some full video
remember
games are like Pokemon exactly gameplay style too, and this is nothing like a Pokemon game when
You know what?
play.
No, it's
What,
not.
what Pal World reminds me of is I just watched this episode again. Nathan For You, when he opens a Starbucks and he just puts the word dumb in front of it. So it's dumb Starbucks.
Yeah.
Dumb stuff.
That's what it reminds me of. It's like the same exact
good.
thing, but it's different.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, so actual choice. Rise of the Ronin.
Yes, Dan, yes.
So goddamn rad. Dude, I mean, come on, give me more samurais. More.
Please.
Give me more.
Yeah.
Samurai are always cool every time.
Just Ghost of Tsushima was just, and I don't know how similar these are going to be, but just I freaking love Ghost of Tsushima. That game is so unbelievably amazing.
I think there's more fantasy stuff at least in terms of like I saw like how some people were like flying and stuff, and I'm like,
you get like a glider, like a
it's
glider.
got the gliding machine, which is cool. So I mean, just give me more open world samurai.
He's using a gun too. I'm pretty interested in that.
Yeah, so it's got that. Good. It's during that era.
Like a Ronin.
They did use them.
They did.
It was
Ronins were no longer like they were masterless samurais or samurais who kind of abandoned the path and they adapted like new various ways.
I might be thinking of Shogun then and mixing them up. I don't know.
Yeah, Shogun is like a leader of a fiefdom. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
They're like a town mayor. You know.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and like general, and I'm being really reductive in explaining this, but
yeah. I'm accepting.
Whatever the era was that Rurouni Kenshin takes place during, because that's kind of like right at the turn of like where like that technology is being introduced to the East.
The end of the Tokugawa, the beginning of the Batasoka. I forget what the new one is called, but the end of the Tokugawa era.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited for that. So.
All right, I'll mention two really similar games. One comes out this week called Enshrouded, and it looks very much like my next Valheim. I don't know, like it's yet to be seen because I played the demo,
sure
but
quality-wise, if it's there.
Yeah, well, yet to be seen if start to finish the quality's there, but it looks great.
There is the day after level of hype for this though, but like deserved. Like not that this is a scam game, but like people are so excited for this game.
Yeah, the developers have put out some really fun stuff to show how they created the world. It's not procedurally generated. They wanted to create things for you to discover that they've handcrafted.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. I think I like
weirdly
that.
Enough, Pal World did that. They made a handcrafted world instead of it being procedurally generated.
I noticed that
was
too.
Weird. Yeah,
some of the gameplay.
That was very bizarre for a type of game like that.
And then a similar game that I just wanted to highlight too is Nightingale. Comes out in February. Got bumped back a number of times, and I've been hyped for this for a long time. So looking forward to that one.
I did not know until I watched the gameplay. Like I know you did a hype video, whatever. I'm sure it was good. I don't watch our channel.
Sure, Jeff.
Nice commercial.
But don't say it out loud.
New YouTube shorts.
Tim, I watched it.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, I remember watching that because I'm excited for that game too. You and I geeked out about that game on its review.
Yeah, man.
I don't remember the crafting and survivor elements. I was looking at it from like a first-person action stuff, and I was like, "That looks cool."
Pretty sure this is Ken Levine's thing.
I was like, I don't about this. So I don't. I always like kind of like shy away from or just don't gravitate towards, I guess, games that include survival elements. I'm just a little bitch, I guess.
Yeah, this one, not only does it look like a lot of crafting and stuff, but you create these cards that then changes the portals that you go through, so your world could be totally different than anyone else's. Like, it looks really interesting, the way the portals will work. So anyway, I'm looking forward to that one.
Ex-BioWare devs, right?
Yeah, I think it's Ken. Is it Ken Levine who did this?
No, Ken Levine was BioShock.
Oh, it's BioShock.
Yeah, so he's working on something else.
That's right.
Yeah, we won't see that one for.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
You're never going to see that one by Ken Levine. I promise you.
All right, Kyle, what else you got?
Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2.
Yeah,
Go
buddy.
play the first game, guys. It's so good, and it's on sale on Steam all the time, and it's very, very, very controller friendly. This is one of the greatest third-person shooters ever. It definitely just ripped off Gears of War, and we shouldn't talk about it anymore.
Yeah, it's just literally the same.
Because Gears of War didn't.
Yeah, because Gears of War was made in 1983. Whenever Warhammer 40K was. Anyways, we're talking story. We're talking like high octane, Uncharted level, like like set pieces and like explosions going on and storytelling and great voice acting, and these games are so freaking epic, guys. And they're linear, so you don't have to worry about like being lost or what do I do next. Like
it's installed. I need to play it. It's installed. It's sitting there ready for me to play.
You gotta play it.
Gotta play
so
it.
Good.
That's our Tim and I's Hall of Shame backlog. That's the first one for first one of 2024.
I'm gonna go after
homework.
that. Yeah. Okay, Jeff. What about you?
That's actually one of mine too, and it's purely based on what I saw from and Kyle's hype too, but purely what I saw from like the gameplay reveals and stuff like that and the overviews and stuff. I'm like, dude, I would love this game. Holy crap! And of course, I did the same thing as Tim. I bought the game. Since then, I just need to play it.
It's been so cheap. It's so easy to get really cheap on.
You can play it on Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's insane. So the next one in my most anticipated list, I'm just gonna keep going in order. I have is I'll just list a couple actually. I think this one's gonna meet the release date because we've been seeing it for so long. Avowed. I'm a huge Obsidian Entertainment fan. Huge. Like I love all their games, big or small, so far. Like at least since Outer Worlds. Well, maybe there's one before that too. I didn't really dive into Fallout New Vegas. That was during my lapse time as a gamer, I guess. Sure. I feel like I should always go back and play that. Fan
favorite. Holds up okay.
And I've heard like the best qualities of that are in Outer Worlds, so it's kind of like, whoa, cool. I kind of got that experience in some way or another.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
But Avowed looks like more of that, but just it's a fantasy setting. It's like magic and stuff like that.
And that's what I wanted. I wanted Avowed just to be Outer Worlds, but fantasy.
Exactly.
We're gonna take a crack at this genre, but our way that we did
DNA is the exact same. Yeah.
And if you hate lizard people, you'll get to kill a lot of them in this game. There's a lot.
Yeah. And they always called Outer Worlds small, but like I don't look at it as a small game. It's a 40-hour game. It can be 60 hours. It is 80 with the DLC. It's focused. Yeah, I think it's like all the fat is trimmed out. Like if a side quest didn't slap, they just cut it out and like kept everything really tight.
And never forget they did South Park Stick of Truth, which is one of the best games ever.
Oh, very good. I love that game. Absolutely outstanding.
But yeah, Grounded and Pentiment, or I didn't get in super. Again, it's a survival game, so I didn't get super into it. But like what I've watched of it and the time I did play of it was really good. And then Pentiment, of course, kind of blew me away, and it didn't. It shouldn't have. Anyway, the next one I want to mention is the one that Tim and I have been waiting forever for. It's the Plucky Squire, man. Just give it to us. It's got to be coming out this year.
Yes.
That game looks so cool. How it's constantly changing environments and the animation styles. Like it's hand drawn in one environment, and then you're coming out of books, and it's suddenly like It Takes Two or whatever. It's suddenly like third person environment, 3D. It's all sorts of different types of things going on at once. It looks very ambitious.
I have a feeling that it was like
please just give it to us.
A Swimming in Sevens game, and then as hype built for it, when they first released it, like, oh crap, let's delay it. We got to make it much better.
Yeah,
I have a feeling
like the Silk Song or whatever game that won't ever come out.
Oh my god,
we got to really deliver on this game.
It's gonna come out. Damn it. Gonna come out.
Doesn't exist. Dan, what else are you hyped for this year? And it's okay if you don't have any more. We don't have to.
So Suicide Squad. No, I'm just kidding.
I knew it.
Hey guys, the story is supposed to be good. They told us that.
By the way, I had that on my most anticipated list for a little while there. I removed it after all the previews and hearing everyone talk about it. It's off.
So this one's kind of like a cautiously optimistic, but I never played the original one. Shame on me, because I'm actually not super familiar with the series, and that's Silent Hill 2. The remake of Silent Hill 2.
Yeah, this is gonna be good, man. Yeah.
Silent Hill 2 is like one of those games
considered one of the greatest horror games of all time.
Yes.
I've never played it either.
I love the Resident Evil series, but Silent Hill is kind of like, always sort of been like parallel to that.
Yeah.
And I'm just not as familiar with it. But 2, is touted as one of like the
that's
great.
right. This is the terrible name, but Bluebird
and that's
team.
why I'm cautiously
Observer,
that's why I'm cautiously
Blair
optimistic.
Witch, Yeah. They did Layers of Fear too. They're really good with horror, but I don't know how. I don't even know what kind of games these are. Like, are they like Resident Evil?
They're kind of like Resident Evil, way more psychological, but kind of same camera angle, kind of same tank controls, very similar. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool.
There is combat. It's not as I don't think it's as much as Resident Evil, but there is combat there.
Yeah, it's usually beating stuff with sticks.
Fun. Okay, great.
Yes. But yeah, I'm excited to if they do a good job.
Get the piss scared out of you. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Bloober.
No more urine. No more urine.
I'm not gonna lie, Bloober makes really good looking games. Like, I mean, they really do. It's just sometimes the gameplay itself, they just got a lot of work to do, in my opinion.
Do you think
They have a lot of
sometimes they
pressure.
regret naming themselves that a little bit?
They got to,
Bloober.
especially
I
when
don't
they
think
get
they
a
do,
project
man.
like
Everyone
this.
knows their name. Like
That's true.
That's the whole
True.
like right. Like we all
That's a good
know who
point.
they
It's all
are.
about marketing.
So.
Yeah, if
Yep.
my development team name was Fart Piss, it'd be like, okay, that's they're gonna get hired for everything. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
one. I was scrolling through 2024 releases without a release date, and one was like extremely okay games, and I'm like, that's hilarious. That's the
Yeah,
best
I love that
developer
That's
name I've
amazing.
ever heard.
But yeah, I'm just excited for that one because hopefully.
I'll rattle off a few more here real quick, and then let you guys each do your last round of them. Suikoden 1 and 2 remasters, give them to me. You announced them, you delayed them,
Do
give
it.
them to me.
Yeah.
On them.
Do it.
Give it now.
Give it to me.
Oh.
Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Machine Games
I
makes
was gonna
really
name that
fun,
one.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
really fun
Yes.
Name that
first-person adventure, whatever, stealth, all the things. I love the Wolfenstein games a lot. Even the two little spin-off ones they did, like the DLC and then the
Yeah,
spin-off game.
there's
Those
the
weren't
multiplayer
amazing, but they were
Youngblood one.
fun.
Yeah.
I liked you guys mentioned that
Their
one already.
cutscenes are incredible.
I'll say a couple smaller ones. I'll leave some of the bigger ones in case you guys have them. Frostpunk 2, I really like those. That first strategy game was a lot of fun. I think the second one looks like it could be a lot of fun as well. 33 Immortals, I love that developer. So
yeah,
excited
that's
to see-
Lotus or Flout.
yeah, they did the Spirit
Spiritfarer.
Farer,
Yeah.
and then they did Sundered
Jotun?
before that, and Jotun before that. So they make great games. And last one I'll mention here is Banishers: Ghost of New Eden comes out in February.
It's
Got
Don't
delayed.
Nod, right?
It's Don't Nod. Yeah. Yeah. The concept of it, like the setting of it is interesting. And I still expect it to be a Swimming in Sevens games. Like I'm expecting a AA experience. So if it at least hits that, it's gonna be a fun time. If it's better
There you
than
go.
that, awesome. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that one. Kyle, what about you? You can go ahead and like
Yeah, I'll rattle off the rest. I got Earth Defense Force 6, another cool co-op game that I just can't wait to get my hands on.
We're playing
Goofy,
that.
dumb,
Yeah.
super, super, super fun. You know, yeah, excited
hope-
for that one, Jeff. I know
Hoping for all the emotes and all the songs.
We're gonna
and all
be
the stuff.
singing the EDF song together. We're gonna be chanting
whole way.
together.
Yeah.
We're gonna be saluting each other while we like run straight into death's door. You know, all of that is gonna happen. I
love those
promise.
games. Oh my gosh.
God, I just had another one. And my brain is farting because it's 12 o'clock at night right now.
it's 2 for
Hold
Dan.
on. Sorry.
It's
Yeah,
one for
I
Jeff.
know. Yeah, I always feel bad
Big
whenever I
boy.
complain because Dan's 2 hours in the future.
I'm a big boy.
Oh, Indiana Jones, which you said that one already. So Earth Defense Force is really the last one I had left. Everything else has already been kind of said. I'm sure someone's gonna bring up something that I'll be like, oh yeah. So I'll let them do that right now.
Yeah, I do have
All
two
right, Jeff, what do you
Utah.
got?
Two more. So one is that's a Point Break reference, dude.
Been too
One
long
doesn't
since I've
have a
seen it.
release date, but I'm pretty sure Don't Nod's going to release it. It's their Life is Strange, basically.
Oh yeah.
It's a new version of that.
We lost
basically.
Life is Strange license, so we're starting a new
Yes,
one.
it's
That's
called
what this game is, yeah.
It's called Lost Records, Bloom
That's
and
right.
Rage,
Oh,
and I just want to see
yeah.
them return to form with like the season 1 Life is Strange energy. That's
Oof,
what I'm kind of
so
looking
good.
for.
Love that first season.
Me too.
Same.
And I love Lost Colors too, but it sounds like
I
it's just going to
love
be a
them.
Deck 9 thing going forward and not a Don't Nod
Yeah.
thing. And then the last one I want to mention, I feel like a lot of people are hesitant because of the delays, but once the game comes out and we play it, it is going to deliver. I do
Skull and
feel
Bones.
no,
Oh.
absolutely not. Senua's
Vampire?
Saga, Hellblade 2. I feel
right.
like
Yeah.
we're gonna forget all of the development hell, and when we play it, we're gonna be like, dude, this game is unbelievable, man. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like there's gonna be a cinematic experience there.
It'll be a
that's gonna
visual
be unparalleled.
showcase, unlike
Yeah.
anything else. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
right.
combat's gonna be great, or maybe even the puzzles might not be fun still. I don't know. That was my least favorite part.
They gotta be better
Yeah.
than the first.
I think
one.
the puzzles
Oh,
are going to be better. Yeah, I think
I hope
think
so.
this is going to be a great game. I agree.
But yeah, that's all I
Nice.
have.
I
Dan,
forgot about
anything
one.
else?
If it
Oh.
does come out, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. If that
Yeah.
does come out, I forget the studio who just came on board, but I know Jeff's a huge
It's
fan
somebody
of that
that
studio.
matters. Yeah. It's
The Chinese Room.
Somebody that
Is it
matters.
Chinese Room? I think that's
I
what it
think-
is.
Wow, they're doing
Oh.
2 games next year then. Okay.
And I don't know if this
Wow.
is gonna make. I don't know if this is gonna make the list or whatever.
They're-
But I'm
They
sorry.
keep putting out new like gameplay videos. So they got to be pretty far along now.
I mean,
But yeah, you're right.
The first
Chinese
game
Room.
is like is Deus Ex, the original Deus Ex levels
Right.
of beloved Western RPGs. You know, so it's like bringing that brand back and capturing it is important. I think everyone involved knows it's important, and I think it's going to deliver. Even though, much like Hellblade, I think delays and especially the developer changes has worried some people, rightfully so.
Yeah, and I think this developer Chinese room has done. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, Dear Esther, and Little Orpheus. Little Orpheus is a little bit of departure. That's more of like a side-scrolling platformer, similar to The Cub, which we'll talk about next week.
The Cub.
But yeah, these guys only do like narrative type of first person, for the most part, narrative games.
Walking simulators, if you will.
Yeah, this feels like a stretch for them big time. So I'm kind of like we mentioned with another game I'm already forgetting. Cautiously optimistic. Oh, Silent Hill 2. Cautiously optimistic with this game. Yeah.
All right, Dan, anything else coming out this year that you're hyped for?
I scrolled through just to see what was coming in. The only thing that's grabbing my eye that I'm like, oh yes, that it looks beautiful. Is Black Myth Wukong.
Yeah, that looks really good. Absolutely.
Yeah. Visually, just has like since day one looked stunning.
I just need to hear that it's not a Souls-like game.
Yeah, I
know.
that's,
Same.
That's the.
Like,
that's
I hope
it
someone
is.
comes out and goes, "It's just like Ninja Gaiden from Xbox." Like, okay, I'm in.
It looks like a Souls game. I don't know.
Just give me a
To
straightforward.
me, it looks like a
game.
Ninja Gaiden game to me, which I guess there's not a lot of differences, to be honest. But like,
They're hard.
So maybe it's a really fast Souls game. That'd be different, right?
That's what
Yeah,
I mean.
I think
I think
is,
because of its
precision.
like fast-paced nature, it looks like Ninja Gaiden, and like
Yeah,
Ninja
that's
Gaiden
true.
was hard. Remember, like that game.
You think
a
Souls
lot of
game
people
is
walked away
slow?
from.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, combat wise, that's the thing. I'm like, I don't know what's going on there.
There's
but
some weird stuff behind the scenes with the developer there too. Like their developer said some wild stuff.
Well, so it's a Chinese studio. Yeah, it's a Chinese studio. So yeah,
he
there's
said
definitely-
some really wild things.
That's not surprising.
what?
I guess.
Okay.
so,
All right,
yeah.
let me rattle off a few other things that are scheduled for this year, and then we'll wrap it up. Visions of Mana, we got a preview for at the developer direct recently.
Good looking game.
Dude, Mana coming back. Yes,
I think that looks like a lot of fun.
What's a Mana with you? All right, sorry.
I'm not saying I think it's going to come out this year, but it could. That's Wolf Among Us 2. It's supposed to be.
I had that on my list forever, and then I forgot about the layoffs that they had in September, and I was like, yeah, that's not coming out.
It might not. It might not happen.
That whole studio is gonna fold again for sure.
Yeah.
So.
It might not happen.
It's like Skybound Games now, and it's still not enough. Like it's still whatever.
There is a really cool looking cell shaded anime game called Sandland coming out in April.
Sandland.
Oh
looks
yeah,
good.
that's the
Akira Toriyama joint,
Dragon Ball
man.
guy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Akira Toriyama. Yeah.
So that one
Very,
looks
very cool.
interesting. Comes out in April, and then last but not least, I think this is in either February or March. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is hitting.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Switch.
I also think that Stalker 2 has the ability to be very good.
Yeah, I hope that arrives this year. Like I know that team's really been through. it.
September
Like,
5th, they announced a date. I
September
mean,
5th.
things get delayed, but they just did a release date trailer.
I like when you get an actual day and date. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh,
Yeah.
not a season, but a date. Yeah.
I
Feels
do
more
think,
real.
yeah, Nintendo will hit their because it's like so far they've only really announced well, there's a Princess Peach game, Mario versus Donkey Kong, and then
we might
those
get a Switch 2 this year.
those
So-
remakes as well. I think they're gonna hit those and then get the Switch 2 out the door. Yeah.
And by the way, they got to call it the Super Nintendo Switch. Like you have to.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
keep
so.
with tradition, man.
Just
Don't
call it Super.
please don't call it Switch U for the love of God. Just
I'll take
Super
Switchy.
Switch.
I'll take Switchy.
Switchy would be
Switchy.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And switchy with it.
Switch X, Switch
Yeah.
Series X.
Or they could pull a
Snap Game
Goat
Pass
Simulator
on it.
A Goat Simulator, just call it Switch 3. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Oh my
Dude,
god,
I
that'd be
would-
so great. Oh my god, yeah.
Oh
Did
my
I
Yes.
miss the
gosh.
Switch
Yes.
Or they pull a
no.
God of War and just call it Nintendo. That's it.
Nintendo.
It's just
Yeah.
Nintendo
Call it
now.
call it
Yeah.
Switch cubed, and it's actually the shape of a cube.
Oh.
So it's got his three
Hold on a minute,
dimensions.
dude.
Oh, here's an old prototype named the Switch Dolphin.
Yes, yes.
Switch Dolphin, or what was
Yeah.
the one? The Wii was called like the Cafe or something
Yeah,
like that.
Cafe. We was Cafe. Yeah, Project Cafe.
Oh man, I remember trying to guess what their things were going to be. We were never close because they was like, they're doing what? Like we
Yeah.
had no
Yeah.
idea what they were
Yeah.
making. So yeah, I think I did see something recently. Is it GDC or some kind of conference has been happening recently where I think they said 8% of the developers that were polled are saying they're actively working on Nintendo's new console or
Oh yeah,
I
I've
guess
heard people
software.
have seen the form factor. I've heard many things. Who knows
Yep.
if it's true, but yeah, it
Sounds
sounds
then-
like
long.
it sounds
was
like,
like-
at Gamescom a lot of people got firsthand
Oh,
like sight on
okay.
onto it.
So like behind the scenes, they got to
Yeah,
peek at.
yeah. Way like very small group of people. Yeah.
So like that number is apparently growing of people who are actively working on next Switch hardware, software, and then about a third of them saying like that's of all the platforms, that's the one they're most keyed in on right now to try to like determine like what is it, what can it do, and because I mean the Switch sold, what was it, 500 billion units or something like that? Yeah, give or take.
Nothing.
Yeah, the rumor is that it's going to be iterative and not groundbreaking. So it's just it is going to be.
That's why
Switch
something like a super, like put the little like the super with the red text across, like they used to do for Super Nintendo. Remember that? Like it was just. It's still
I think that would be awesome. I think Super Switch is super cool because there's nothing wrong with
like a retro
making someone
look.
go down that. SS, it's got a ring to it, right, guys? SS, that's good. It's not historically taken.
Yeah, there's nothing.
SS.
There's no negative.
Yeah, that sounds good, right, guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, that's good for this episode. Thank you, guys. It's been fun to review the year. Next week, we'll get back to it with news and new games and all that fun stuff. Until then, peace.